me, that is an incredible backdrop. It looks like a green screen, but it is not. Please let me know, where are you? What are you up to currently?
Hi, Bailey. I'm currently in Siargao in the Philippines. I just rode a bike here from Manila, and this was the end destination because Siargao is a pretty cool spot.
I saw on your TikTok that you're currently riding for, well, the whole length or the whole width of the Philippines, was it, on an e-bike?
Yeah, yeah. So it's strange how that's come about, but it's called a Sauron, and it's like a Chinese dirt bike that kids in America generally like soup up and do wheelies on, and so it's most social media format content about that is like tricks and stuff. But I got to ride one in Manila doing a documentary I was filming there, and I realized just how good the thing was. I reached out to them like, I think I could do the whole of the Philippines on this, and then Sauron got back to me saying, "Yes, we'll give you one if you just make content and have a crack."
What?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. So how are you
So that's
finding it on
been
the e-bike? Because I've heard lots of people doing things like on motorbikes themselves, and obviously you got the motor, there's loads of parts about, engineers are great. Have you struggled at all doing it on an e-bike?
Yeah, man, massively. You fossil fuels gets a bad rep, but like when you can fill your car to 100% in 20 seconds and then go another 500 kilometers, you really feel that when you're on an e-bike. Whenever I run out, I'm 3 hours of charging. So you go like 70 Ks, and then wherever you are where you run out, you have to make a friend who has a plug socket, and then you are there for 3 hours, wherever that is. It's quite interesting. I actually really like that way of traveling. I think like when you get forced into like some of these towns I'm stopping in, no tourist is like, no one is going to those towns during their time in the Philippines. I don't just have to stop, but I need to go and actually like talk to people, make friends, and find a plug socket. Yeah.
Yeah, I've not thought about that part. Wow, yeah, of course, because obviously one thing with fuel, and I was just thinking in my head, right, you're gonna have to stop quite frequently because the batteries are just on e-bikes notoriously low and take ages to charge. But the actual element of finding somebody who's gonna let you use their plug, making friends with people all across the Philippines for the sake of letting you charge up every time.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you ever had any
Yeah,
trouble
man.
finding someone who's gonna help you out?
No, not once. Not once. Even like in the most dire circumstances, like where I'm riding, the sun is setting, I have no idea where I am. I've been told by like police that there's certain areas which are quite dangerous in the Philippines. Like they still have like communist parties here who are like insurgents, and they have like gun battles with the police. I had no idea about that. I was just riding through, like minding my business, and then I got into a conversation at Jollibee, which is like a fast food chain, with a cop, and he was like, "Yeah, the place you're going through." He showed me a video of the day before, and it was a gun battle between insurgents, and I was going
Oh
through that area.
fuck.
Yeah, it's never good. I didn't do any research before this trip, like at all. I just thought generally things work out. Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
things are
for the
actually
most
possible.
part they do. But I mean, for the most part, things always seem a lot scarier in that planning phase. For the most part, obviously things are always going to go wrong, but you'd be quite unfortunate to find yourself in a situation where you are in serious danger. So starting in Manila, I mean, you're gonna have to help me because somebody who likes to travel, my geography is just notoriously shit. So
Right.
Manila, is that on the west? Whereabouts in the
Manila's
Philippines is
north.
Manila?
It's like
No.
you've got the biggest island in the Philippines is called Luzon, and it's like one of the most northern islands. It's huge, and Manila is pretty much slap bang in the middle of Luzon on the, don't fuck this up, western side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
western. Thought it was western, northwestern. Okay, so you've got the. That's obviously it's a main point people go to when they go to the Philippines. You've got Manila. What were some of the areas which were just the sketchiest shit?
In Manila.
Well, in the Philippines so far, because
Oh, in the
you're in.
Philippines.
Yeah.
Okay, to be honest, like there are some battles going on. Even the place I was just filming at a place called Masungi, which is it's like a limestone park that this engineer was developing. Well, he was meant to develop it in the 90s, and he got there and he saw like these incredible 60 million-year-old limestone mountains and this rainforest that had been completely deforested around the whole thing. And he looked at it. It's a massive like it's like a wonder of the world, and they just wanted to level it and turn it into concrete. And this engineer went completely against what you think an engineer would do, and he just started planting trees. And then he managed to like create over 20 years this geopark in the mountains, and the rainforest has come back. And I was filming
Whoa.
there near Manila. It's about 35 kilometers out of the city, and they actually, that's sketchy. Like they have people come in who are paid by mining companies to shoot at the rangers that Masungi employ. One guy got shot in the head, one guy got shot in the neck, and it's all
But
like
you're saying this like, are they dead then? They know more? Are they
they
still
live,
about?
they live, yeah,
Lived.
they live, but they got one got shot in the head, one got shot in the neck. Same incident. They just shot through their ranger barracks, and this is like 40 kilometers outside of the capital city. So like there is sketchy stuff going on. Yeah, and that was apparently like the Philippines. It's to be an environmental protector here. You've got to be careful. Yeah, because there's a lot of money to be made here from like the limestone. That's all used in concrete. Manila is the most densely populated city in the world, so they need concrete. So you have this battle going on of like how much of our environment do we sacrifice, and then what will be the knock-on effects. Super interesting, actually, man. Like the biggest things that hit Manila, they get flooded every year. Huge floods just like wipe through the city, and like it's because
Is
they've
the whole
chopped
city
all
on
the forest.
stilts then, or?
No, like it's like it's monsoon season, so there's a drying out period. Like right now is the dry
Hmm.
period. When the monsoons come, my God, because they've taken all the forest around the city, the water just hits them at 1,000,000 miles an hour every year. I think it's like $1 billion in flood damages every single year, and that's like the balancing act you have to play of like assessing what the natural world is giving to you as a human population, and like how much you can take without it just completely screwing you over in the long run.
Holy fuck. So how has he managed to get away with it? Obviously he's doing great work, but how has he managed to avoid sort of the government and the councils just coming straight in and saying, no, we need this?
So that's part of the reason why I was there is they're very good at making their voice heard. Like they've got international friends. Like they're playing the game well, and they've had to play the game well because if they didn't, and then they would have been kicked out, and they would have eaten that whole mountain a long time ago. But they're friends with Greta Thunberg. They're friends with Jane Goodall. They get awards from the United Nations, you know. So like the international audience has got eyeballs on Musungi, and for that reason, they can't just be deleted from the map, you know. So that's how they've done it. They've been smart with
Smart.
how they
Very smart,
for
yeah.
us.
That you can come after us, you can take the limestone, but you've got an absolute public thunderstorm coming your way if that's the case. So was that what
Exactly.
you were doing? Did you find yourself there by accident then, or was it did you get brought in to help make these videos?
So yeah, I met Ben's daughter in Indonesia. I was filming this like it's an event called the Long Run, and it's where all these people who have got vested interests in community, culture, commerce, and one other one, conservation. Yeah, so basically, people who care about that, they fly together once a year and they talk about like the things that they've done in their businesses and how it's impacted those four things in the surrounding area. So it's basically like people who have got a bit of power sharing ideas and like trying to make their corner of the world a better place by possibly implementing something that they did in South America or something they did in, you know, Asia. And then maybe someone's got an idea that you can bring in and completely change your whole business model. So these people get together for the long run once a year. And then I was brought into the long run, which was hilarious, rubbing shoulders with these, you know, really esteemed. Some of these guys like own private islands and things, and then there's just like this random boy from Chester, with the camera, like.
Just
Anyway,
putting
that's
it
how
in
I
their
got.
face, like, what have you done?
Literally, yeah. I would. It's you go and grab these like multimillionaires and say, come have a chat with me," and they're like, "I'm busy," but no, they're all lovely people. And I met Anne there. So Anne was there trying to get ideas for Musungi from a more like
Mm.
for many different reasons, you know, like conservation reasons, communication. And then she met me there at the bar. And she was like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "I'm a storyteller." And she was like, "I could do with one of those." And then that's how it all happened. Yeah.
We could all do with a lot more storytellers. I mean, as a way to travel, because I've read through your stuff on Medium, and you've threw out so much stuff on Medium of good quality as well, longer reads where you've actually taken the time. Is that kind of something that's come naturally? How did you get into the storytelling side of what you're doing?
Um, so like, have you ever had like creative pull like inside you? You know, when you get a need to like be creative in some way, and I've had it since I was a
Mm.
kid. But I always thought when I was a kid, I was like, the only way to be creative is to like make art, like drawings and stuff, and I was
Yeah.
crap at that. So I always just assumed I was terrible, and that creative pull was wrong, and I didn't have any creative juices, and it should just quiet down. And then I realized that I'm a words guy, like not a pictures guy. So when I realized you could be creative with stories and stuff as well, and like with words, that's when like I became pretty addicted to like just documenting how I saw like the world, like adding like humor as well as an element, and then just seeing how people responded when they read it. And then it was always like you I guess you could bounce ideas. That's what I like about social media. It's like it's like an echo chamber which you can like throw an idea out and immediately you get a response. You know? No way. Yeah, I'm being attacked by a colony of ants. You couldn't write this. You couldn't write. This is gonna be my next Medium article. Getting attacked by a colony of ants while talking to a boy from Stoke. Fuck. Okay. There are ants all over this fucking beach. I didn't even know ants lived on the beach. This is news to me.
Okay, so we're back in. Some of the more astute of you will realize that Josh is no longer by the beach. Because what happened?
There was a sort of a island-wide drop in signal, so everything went down to 3G. Even Starlink went down. So I was going to Starlink cafes, and they were like, "Can't help you." But this little place somehow has beaten that. I don't know. I think they've got I don't know, wired fiber optic. But yeah, it works.
How does Starlink actually work? Because I've seen people, especially with the vans, that in the van life, with the satellites that they can just peel out. But is it quite popular around the Philippines and that part of the world?
It is. It is. Mate, Starlink is a game changer. I once saw the satellites going across the sky. I thought aliens were invading. They're like all joined up, and it was across the
me
sky.
too.
Have you seen them?
Me too. Yeah, I was high as a kite. This was back in only not long after they just launched in the UK, and I was sitting out in the garden after a spliff or two, and I was just there looking up, and I saw him. I was like, "What the fuck?" Ran straight inside to grab my mates. I was like, "Guys, come check this out! Quick!" And they were like obviously high as well, so it was like slow. It was like, "What the ever? Shut the fuck up!" I was like, "No, seriously, guys, seriously." Obviously, they come out and they've already beamed across the sky by then. But I shit myself. I was searching straight away all over Facebook and Twitter and Reddit. I was like, did anybody else just see that? And it's like, yeah, it's just Starlink. It's like, okay.
Yeah. It's crazy. It is a crazy thing. I was in Botswana.
Is it actually good then?
Was I? Zimbabwe. It is good. It is good. Yeah, and it's a game changer. It's also quite affordable. You know, like people in the Philippines, they love it. I don't know, it's like $35 a month or something, I think. Something like that.
What? Can you connect straight off your phone, or do you need a satellite for it?
I think you need the little dish. I think it comes with a little dish, and then it's basically just Wi-Fi wherever you have that little dish. I don't know. I'm not a Starlink man. I don't have it, but yeah.
I want
it's
it
everywhere. Yeah, you should have it.
I want it so bad. I want it so bad. I mean, Australia's pretty good with their Optus, I think it is, like 5G. The whole length of the coast pretty much has 5G, and that's the only place I'm ever at is along the coast.
Okay, fair, nice.
No, that's sweet. It does lead me on to that because would you class yourself as a digital nomad?
I'd say I'm trying to be one. Yeah, I keep on falling into jobs where I'm like, oh no, I've got a job, and I'm not a digital nomad anymore. Yeah, like that the whole goal is to pay for existence solely through creativity on the move. That's the whole goal, yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of people's goal, mine included, I guess. Someone like yourself, I feel like, is well on the way towards that. How does that work through Medium? Because obviously the main channel, as I see it, is everyone always looks at obviously TikTok, Instagram, Reels, and loads of different stuff, which all have their own benefits and whatnot. But how does that game work with articles and writing?
Dude, I cannot believe Medium has completely changed my life within 3 months. Like, I remember reading all these articles it took me a year and a half to get into the $100 a month club, which means I'm in the top 10%. In my first full month on Medium, I made $50, which to most people, I don't know, man. I'm not sure if that is life-changing money to a lot. I'm sure it's life-changing money to a lot of people. But to me at the time, that was big because I was like, I can exist on $350 for a month, easy. Like I've
Oh,
got my
hell
own
yeah.
camping tent. So for me, that was like a huge amount. And then my next month on Medium, I wrote 4 articles. I made $600, which again, I was like, no way. Like something
What?
I can just write in a cafe for 3 hours, upload it, and there's potential for it to make me 250 bucks, which to me was like a mind blowing moment. My
Mate,
first three
that's meant.
months on Medium, I've like been way more exciting than anything done on TikTok or Instagram or anything like that.
I think that's the case. Everyone always flocks towards TikTok, Instagram, and doing all those things, and like a lot of them leave because they realize they actually don't enjoy it too much. I feel like a lot of people love the idea of the lifestyle, but don't enjoy the reality of creating content.
For
You know what I
sure.
mean? And especially
Editing
because,
is half my life.
oh my fucking god, editing! Oh my god, editing! You're actually in the belly of the beast here because I found this place which does editing. Wait, I say this place. It's an online. It's like Upwork or whatnot, but it's called Filipino Workers dot whatever the dot is over there.
Mm,
Which is basically like Upwork and those kind of and Fiverr, but with Filipino workers who are qualified and good at what they do, and it's an actual one person who you hire as a VA, and there's a load of video editors on there who are really good from as low as like I think it's like $4 an hour or something like that.
wow.
Which to me, if you block your content like I do, it's an absolute game changer when you can pay $50 for effectively what is could be a month's worth of content.
Yeah, that really is a game changer. I should probably look into something like that. Yeah.
But with Medium, though, I mean, obviously, first and foremost, you've got to be a gifted writer, which I believe you are. I mean, whether I'm the best judge of writers or not, when I read your stuff,
Thanks,
as it's somebody who's
Phoenix.
interested in travel, it's like, you're very welcome, Josh. But for somebody who's interested in travel, like it speaks to me, and I'm like, holy fuck, holy fuck, holy fuck, because I love those moments where I had a friend of mine who was telling me a story of when he was traveling Southeast Asia and how um, he ended up spending 2 weeks in a prison in Vietnam where he had one boiled egg to eat each day because his passport was stolen on a sleeper coach. And he effectively, to get to where he needed to be to get to the embassy, he decided to try and run and jump the border without a passport. Don't know why I decided that, but he did. But he was telling me this, and he was telling me the story of how he was literally being dragged away from his one phone call, with just screaming out his passport number and his UK like details, and hopefully somebody would realize that he's there, so he just doesn't end up rotting there. And he's telling me the story, and like everyone else would be like, "Holy fuck, no chance am I ever going there." But in my head, I'm like, I've got goosebumps. This sounds so fucking cool. Like it's the thrill of the adventure, and from seeing your stuff and that. Look, the podcast is called Live Incredibly. I fucking love hearing stories of people who are living incredibly, doing that kind of stuff, which isn't your kind of. I don't want to say generic because everyone's got their own travel adventure and the travel stories, but the stuff
Mm,
that you're doing and how you're doing it speaks to that side of me, which is like pure adventure. Just pure adventure. Fucking God knows what's going to happen around every turn.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
if you can find a way where that works with Medium as well, and to anybody else who's excited from this kind of stuff, check out Josh on Medium. I normally leave all plugs to the end, but fucking hell, you'll love it. Josh's stuff on Medium, Josh Porter, is just fucking brilliant. Like, so I wanted to go over. I've got it on my iPad here. I just wanted to go over a few of these articles, which I was like, what the fuck?
For sure.
But beforehand, lead me up, take me through the story of how Josh Porter became Josh Porter.
Wow, okay. I was born Chester, small little farming village, like 2,000, 3,000 people. And like we used to, nice family holidays to Northern Ireland all the time. I just remember like the story. We had Chester Zoo on the doorstep, which was, I know it's like, so I used to go to Chester Zoo every week. I was like a lifetime member, well, up to the age of 18. Like if you're under 18, you get special benefits. So I remember going there pretty much every week as a young lad and just being like jaw on the floor the entire time. It never got old. Like it just never got old. And then the fact that like watching David Attenborough and then joining the dots, like those things I was seeing all the time in Chester Zoo, like they didn't live in Chester, those things. Like they're not from Chester. And then I started joining the dots, being like, there's a place in the world where like elephants are just walking around, like going about their business, you know, and then jaguars and tortoises. And as soon as that like penny dropped, that there were these like such magical things in planet Earth that were outside of Great Barrow and the sheep fields of where I'm from. Like as soon as that clicked, and the fact that I had, the potential, I was lucky enough to like be able to go and see these places. I just thought I have to find a way that I can just live and explore the whole time. Yeah, I'd say David Attenborough was actually a giant influence. Yeah, just showing what actually we have on planet Earth, and just becoming obsessed with it.
Yeah, he's an icon for a reason, and I feel like well, for me, it was always around that Christmas time where there was always like a new Planet Earth or one of his other shows. I was always on it around Christmas aired, and I was like sitting there by the fire watching this stuff and listening to him talk and just being amazed by these animals across the world and the different environments. Like, holy fuck! You're from Chester, and I'm from Stoke-on-Trent, and being so close to Stoke-on-Trent, I know you've heard stories of Stoke-on-Trent. And what people say. So for me, it's all lies. It's all lies. But for me, growing up, it's just it doesn't matter where you're from, though. That hometown mentality, and then being in our generation now, seeing for the first time people all over the world living this lifestyle. I don't know if you know the guy. Or have watched the guy beforehand. But my first introduction to kind of travel vlogging and travel videos, where it wasn't kind of a David Attenborough or like a Bear Grylls going out and doing these amazing things with film crews, but just a normal person going out and doing it. It was a guy called Fun for Louie.
Yeah.
I don't know
I remember him.
Like, so he was my intro. This is a normal, like, white guy, dreadlocks from somewhere down in London, and he just traveled around the whole world with his one camera doing these amazing things. And I was like, my God, is that an option? Is this really an option? Can I do that? Like, I haven't got to go to university. I can that. And that for me blew my world wide open. And I was like, how the hell can I go and do something like that?
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
And see, I've kind of taken a very tiptoed way into the whole travel game, where I started off doing seasons. I wanted to travel for ages, and then obviously kept saving up and putting it off and just messing around with lads like in the UK, just like going out drinking, smoking, as you do, as like most British lads from the north do anyway. And then when lockdown hit, I was like, shit, this isn't something that I can put off any longer. Like, this could be taken away. It's not just like a God-given right. It's like I'm lucky to be able to go and do it. So from the end of lockdown, I went to Greece. I did a season in Greece. Well, I went to travel a lot first anyway. I had a job week on, week off for Bet365. So I could travel and I could work one week, and it paid quite well to let me go all around Europe. Then I did a season in Greece, childcare, looking after kids whilst I was just out there, again, getting paid very little, just drinking all the time. Season in France following that, which was obviously in the Alps, skiing, snowboarding on the Alps, childcare again, and then now in the van in Australia. So what I'm saying is every step along the way for me was like, okay, I'm going to take a little bit more of a leap into balls deep in the jungle with no fucking signal like you are now. But from where I am now, that's not your route at all. Where did you go first? What was the adventure? What was the idea behind it to start off with?
Dude, my entire opening up realization stage came like when I had a job after university. I got the job in London, living in Fulham, just because that's what you do, I guess, when you leave university. Got a job selling headphones. And I was getting paid like 25k a year. They gave me a red Audi, and I had a flat in Fulham, and I had a hot Italian girlfriend. And I literally, in the space of a week, I lost everything. Dumped by the girl, lost the job, lost the flat, and then I just was like completely just got wasted for like 2-3 weeks straight.
How did that just like all come crumbling down?
I just was not meant to be a headphone salesman, so I was like deeply unhappy. I like from in every core of my being, I would look in the mirror at my jeans, brown shoes, and jacket, and like just look at myself, being like, "You're becoming things that you hated as a child. Like, what's happening to you?" Like, but it just was like naturally happening because I wasn't being conscious about the steps I was taking. I was just plodding along towards like a moth to a flame, like money in a car and blah blah blah. And like because of those
Money,
unconscious
car,
decisions,
girlfriend, Fulham.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want that as a young boy from a farming village in Chester? But it turns out I just didn't want that at all. And as soon as I lost all that, there's one member of my family that has gone for a dream which was so weird, and he achieved it. And he's one of the most successful playwrights in the UK. It's a guy called Simon Stevens, and he took me in after at my lowest point, and he just talked to me every dinner. He was like, he could see there was something there, and he was just helped me to like uncover what I actually wanted. And I was still handing out sales CVs, and he was like, "What are you doing, dude?" He was like, "You're not a salesman." And he was like, "You're good like with working with kids. It's like you should be trying to like inspire kids somewhere in the world. That's your whole thing." And then I like the next week I got a job in Costa Rica working for GPI as a volunteer coordinator. And that was that. That was it, man. At 24, I did that, left the UK, and for the past 7 years, that's just been to keep the ball rolling, try not to go back.
Yeah, I 100% get that. That when you leave, it's that first eye-opening moment of like, why the hell would I ever want to go back? Obviously, you've got your family, your friends, and there's always a little soft spot for your hometown. From getting out, and you've got all your friends back in the UK, and then you realise, well, you go back straight away, and you're like, yeah, what's happened? I've been gone for 3 months, 6 months. What's happened? What's new? And they'll sit there, sip on the carling, and look at you and say, nothing really. Jimmy broke up with his missus. Tyler got a new job, but everything's pretty much the same. And you just find it so bewildering straight away. Just like how I've been to the other side. Not to make it about yourself, and you're not trying to show off, but in your head it's weird that in a short period of time you have been off, made a million different friends around the other side of the world, and experienced something so completely alien to your previous life. And then come back and nothing's changed. No one's,
Like,
for the most part, nothing's happened.
dude, you're talking about something like, and this is going to sound like one of the most narcissistic things that any travel person could say, but like, I was having this thing before. It's like, you have to be, whilst you're traveling through weird circumstances, like with no safety net, like the e-bike through the Philippines or driving a tuk-tuk through Africa, like, when you're doing that, you have to be so conscious of your daily decisions. Because if you make a wrong decision or you piss off the wrong guy, like there is no safety net there to catch you. So like because you have to be so present in the moment. That's like, this is where the narcissistic bit comes in. Like whenever I'm doing these sorts of activities, I genuinely feel like the main character in a video game, like the main character in a novel or whatever. Like, and when I go back home, I feel myself slip into these routines, which are not good for me. Like the binging Netflix, eating poorly, like not exercising. Like I just fall into these like routines, and I feel like I become a non-playable character. Like I'm not conscious of my decisions when I have these routines when I'm back home. And I think that, that everyone's different. Some people routine's great, but for me, it just turns me into a drone, like a mindless drone. And I can't, I don't like myself when I'm in that state.
I don't think you're narcissistic in the slightest from that. I think what you've just explained and what you've just told me is how people should be. From my perspective, especially as a young man, you've finally finished education. You've had a few years where, look, every guy, when they've just finished education, has a couple of years where they just like, fuck it, I'm going to go push as many boundaries as I can. I'm going to see what drugs I can take. I'm going to see what I can get away with because I'm free. I can do what I want. And you've had no real life experience. And then you do settle very quickly into those mundane habits, that 9 to 5, pints on a Friday night, bag on a Saturday night. And it just happens. But I genuinely believe that us as humans are supposed to live a life where we are the main character. It doesn't mean it's all about yourself, because as a main character, the missions that you undertake from your own volition are missions which by nature help other people. What you do helps and sends a message out to the world which makes it better in every single way possible. It's not narcissistic, but without that Ready Player One idea of it's a video game, you don't actually do much. Like nobody does much. You kind of just tick away. And that's one point I was getting at, is that when you were traveling around Africa in a tuk-tuk or the Philippines on an e-bike, what you'd probably notice is like, how long has life felt? Like that time dilation of, you may have been doing it for 3 months, but it felt like fucking 5 years. And then you look back at for me, it's always New Year. Like since leaving the UK and traveling around everywhere, New Year is the one for me, and I'm like, holy fuck, this year has lasted so long. Like You've done that many new things. You've been to that many new environments. You're switched on. Like you're literally switched on because you have to be, or else, as you say, those decisions you make will come back to bite you in the arse if you don't give them their full due diligence. And you look at it by the end of at the turn of the year and think, fuck, I've done a hell of a lot. And it just, to me, that's what the extending your life is.
It's a very good point. I've never thought about it like that, but it's so true. If you're like, you know, that saying, I feel like I've lived X amount of lifetimes or whatever, or like when someone's reading a speech at a funeral, it's like, Greg really did live X amount of lives. It's like, well done, Greg. Like really, you know, change things up. And you're right. You can almost extend your time on this planet if like you're fully in the moment, experiencing new things consciously, rather than like, if you're going through a routine, the months will go because each day is the same. If you're in Groundhog Day, then you're going to be 30 when you blink, and then you're going to be 40 when you blink. And it's like, that's a scary thought. That really is. But yeah, these 7 years, to think that I've been doing this now the same amount of time I was in high school, like high school went by like that. These 7 years have felt like, you know, felt like my whole life. I can barely remember who I was before in my early 20s now. It's such a distant memory.
Yeah, it's a lifetime. And like, just to go into a little bit further of how that, on a personal level for me, since being in Australia, we've had to spend 6 months working. The past 6 months we've been working steady jobs in Sydney. But for the first 2 months before that, 2-3 months before that, we weren't. Like, we didn't have to work. We had the money saved up and we were fine. Those first 2 or 3 months felt like an entire year in itself. This past 6 months has literally felt like 2 months. It's gone. Our bodies, our brain, our senses the only reason our senses work is because we are looking at the differences between one thing and another thing. We see contrast, we see difference. We don't see things, we don't interpret things which are the same. And what we, as people, don't seem to realize a lot of the time, in my opinion, is that goes for your actual actions as well and the life that you're living. Like you say, if you wake up at the same time every day and you go to the same job, you go take the same route, you take the same bus, you meet the same people, you do the same task over and over and over, you're not going to consciously notice anything being different. So that is all just kind of blocked into one little section of life. But that section of life turns out to be at some points a very large section of all we've got. Like, it's all we've got. We better fucking use it. So like for yourself, that 7 years on the road at the moment, and from what I've seen, it's just, you're doing some fucking incredible stuff. Take me through the tuk-tuk journey.
Okay.
How did that come about?
Again,
what is it?
Dude, it's pretty much very similar to you. Like, COVID for me was a groundbreaking thing. Like, I had begun the traveling thing and I was doing well. I had a job on a private island as a guest relations manager. So I was literally working on this 5-star bamboo island, like one of the coolest islands in the world. And I somehow had found a job as the guest relations manager. It was because actually, to be fair, my friend sorted me out, Jasper, the guy who I did the tuk-tuk mission with. Anyway, when that job was so cushy, all I had to do was like take guests to play croquet, drink beer in the bar with them, make sure they were having fun and smoking cigars and stuff. That was my whole job. It was great. But because it was so great,
you're like a holiday rep on a private island.
Yeah, like a posh holiday rep. Yeah, like a holiday rep for posh people. Yeah, it was strange, especially for like, again, a little lad from Chester to be like all of a sudden plonked in this paradise. It was a very strange time, and I could spearfish as well, so I was having a great time. But anyway, because I was having such a great time, I'd left the creativity stuff like sort of in the corner. I wasn't making videos as often as I should, and that was something that I was really attracted to originally. And then when COVID happened, no guests on the island, and my boss called me up and he was like, okay, we can either leave you on this little 17-hectare island in Indonesia, and you can just live there. We'll send
Survive.
you over. You said we'll send you a boat of food and supplies over once a week, and then you can just like choose to stay there, or I can send you to Manchester right now. But like, you have to make a decision like immediately. And I was like, I'll stay here. That'd be great. And then,
like, is this even a question? Go back to the world. Go back to the Western world, which is, by all intents and purposes, is fucking burning down, or stay on a tropical island where this killer virus can't get to you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, man, like, I mean, that literally is like a scene from a movie. And like, ever since watching Castaway, I've always been like, I wouldn't mind doing the whole island thing for a bit. And then to get offered that opportunity on a 5-star luxury island, I was like, this is going to be so good, man. We'll see how it plays out. And I just I got my like spear gun. I said to him as well, because I wasn't allowed to spearfish around the island. And I was like, you have to let me spearfish here now,
Yeah.
because otherwise I'll go
Yeah,
insane.
you don't want to
And
give
he
the
was
fish
like,
COVID.
no, I murdered most of them, and then I ate them. But that was like how I spent my time, was like spearfishing around the island and making videos about like the different genius things that were going on there. Because the whole island was like made of bamboo, they had like genius carpenters with skills that like you can't even compute, and they had genius ways of like dealing with their food waste, using insects from the jungle to break down the food into maggots, and then they'd feed those maggots to chickens. So there were these crazy stories going on in the back of
How many
house on this
maggots would you
island.
need for that? What? So how many
So
people
like
would fit on the island first? Like,
so
what's the
let's say
capacity of
there's
the island?
100 staff, or maybe 50 staff at a time, and then 50 guests. about about that. So it's like 100 people on the island. All the food waste they would give to a man called a boy, and a boy was the sustainability manager, and he was a genius. And he would put them in these bins, the food waste, and then there were these things called black soldier flies, which would come from the rainforest, naturally lived on the island, and they would lay these maggots, which got to about this big, in these buckets. The maggots would eat the food waste for about 2 weeks, and then when they're ready to pupate, the design of the bucket was like they could crawl up and then they drop down. And we would collect like 3-4 kilos of these things a
Just
week. And then
fat maggots.
giant maggots, like so good for chickens. Like the chickens were pooping out like 2 eggs a day, like double yolk. Like it was a genius
Oh,
setup. And then those eggs are getting fed back to the guests. So I like, when I heard this
so
story, I was like,
would that be the whole? Would that be the whole like process or well, human fecal waste, or was it just for like a
no,
little
so
bit of the hotel or wherever it was?
the poo they did some more genius stuff with. A boy dealt with that as well. But like that was just the food waste. And the poo garden, a boy got these natural plants which occur in Indonesia, and he, instead of having like septic tanks, he dug, well, not just him, but like they dug these gardens called wet water gardens, and all the fecal matter got pumped into there, and a boy found these plants which filter out nitrates in poo, and they just completely make the water safe enough for fish to live in after like a couple of weeks.
What? That's genius. What?
Genius, dude, genius.
So was a boy born there? Was he raised there? Or did he just kind of was he brought in to be that Mr. Sustainability?
The company's called Nicoy Island and Chempedak Island, and it's one of it's the best employer that I've ever worked for. And a boy was a barman, and he was like chopping up pineapples, chopping up bananas, throwing them in the bin, and then he was like thinking like, what goes on in the sustainability section? So he started talking around like, can I come and see what's going on in the sustainability section? Where do my banana peels go? And I throw them in the banana peel bin. And then he got taken around the back, and he became obsessed as a barman with the back of house. So he went, so bear in mind, like he's like front of house, flipping cocktails. All the guests love him. All the kids love him. He's like a star at the front of house. And he goes to the guy who owns the island, the boss, Andrew Dixon, and is like, I would really like to learn about sustainability. Andrew gives him a chance in sustainability, and then he just rises to be just this absolute legend that he is today.
So he just lets him. So he was effectively self-taught, or I imagine taught himself from the internet everything he needed to know to kind of make this island almost fully sustainable.
So Andrew like worked closely with him, because Andrew, I mean, he owns two of the most sustainable lodges, like almost in the world. Like Nicoy and Chempedak are highly regarded as the most sustainable lodges, pretty much that there are. So he has a great understanding already, and he would work with a boy, and he would bring in different consultants from around the world, and he would train a boy up using these guys, and a boy is just a sponge for information. So he just knows everything about sustainability, that guy. And he's the reason why I have that things have happened like this for me, because I spent time with him. I filmed a story just on my iPhone about these black soldier flies, and that's the video which got me 100,000 followers on TikTok in like a week. Bang. Like, and that was all
Whoosh.
a boy's knowledge. Yeah.
Well, thing is, it's just being curious about it. Like that to me, that sounds like just super interesting. So like you've got the soldier flies for the waste, the food waste. You'd have about 3 or 4 kilograms of them. They'd go and feed the chickens and everything else. Is that kind of sustainable in terms of how many more flies there are? Is it like does the cycle keep going, or do you need to keep on bringing in more maggots, more flies, or is there too much food? Is it a closed loop
Okay,
circuit?
so the good thing about the rainforest is there's so much life in a rainforest, you can almost not compute it with the brain of someone who's walked around forests in the UK. It's just full of life. And so the dead things on the island are so numerous, and that half the island is forest. So most of these black soldier flies are in the forest. It's just the occasional ones which are coming to the bins and laying the eggs there. And then a boy monitors the numbers of flies and stuff, and he monitors the food waste, and he can
How do you monitor how many
calculate.
flies? What the?
So
It's
so
like
he's monitoring
sitting there at the doorway, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
It's a good question, but essentially, if you monitor the kilograms of maggots, you know how many maggots there are, and you can see how quickly the food waste is being broken down. So from deducing the maggots and the food waste breakdown time, a boy can monitor the fly population on the island, which is smart. And if it ever does get to a point where he's a genius, eh?
He's a genius.
But, like,
I had to stop myself. I was like, he's a fucking genius.
yeah. But if it ever does get to a point where the maggots are taking a bit longer to make up 2 or 3 kg, maybe it's taken 2 weeks to get that number, then a boy like sets aside these egg containers under food in like a greenhouse setting, and he just breeds them. He gets them to lay and then hatches, and he'll do that until the kilos of food make sense with the fly population. So he gets it to the optimum that it was at the start, and he basically just governs the environment. So he's got nature working for Chempedak and Nikoi, and then he's monitoring it carefully. Like, unfortunately for me, like, if you're a stories guy like I am, then data doesn't really play a part like in my brain. But Andrew said that sustainability starts with data. Like, you have to measure the impact you're having on the environment first, and then you can find ways of changing it. That's the boring part. I didn't put that in the video. Yeah.
It's boring, but I think it's great how people can use that side of things, especially with lots of mass data knowledge that we have now, and other sustainability works around the world. Like, I don't know if you've seen that film. I can't remember what it was called now, but it's about that kid. It's on Netflix, but effectively, there's this kid in an African village, which is going through a drought, and everyone's starving, and they've all got no food. The family's struggling. Everyone's effectively about to starve to death over the next few weeks because of the drought. And he wasn't able to go to school because his family couldn't afford for him to go to school. But he managed to sneak into the library, and he found a book about turbines and how the diodes worked. So that he then went, stole a bunch of parts from motorbikes and everywhere else with a bunch of other kids nearby to build a turbine, which would in effect then power a pump in a well so that they could water all of the crops. And it's like seeing it on different levels in different areas from knowledge being passed around. And I feel like that's something we're going to see more and more and more of. Stuff like what a boy is doing now with the videos that you shared. That, I don't know, how many views did that video get?
Like 4.5 million. Yeah.
So that video's got 4.5 million views. That's no trivial number. There's got to be at some point, especially with how much further that, or how many more views that gets per day as well, that there could be a boy in a different island or a different area who's thinking, holy shit, this is going to work for me and my island or my village as well. This is how we can afford to feed our chickens so we can get eggs for feed the village. That outreach that you've got because of social media, and from somebody who's got the skills like yourself as storytelling and videography to put that together so that a boy's story and what he's learned can be now spread in a new world, is only ever going to make that idea spread further and to be help elsewhere as well, which is just fucking, to me, I find that just so interesting. Like that outreach is just bonkers. And he's that not just a one-trick pony as well. I'm sure there's so many different things that they do on the island and elsewhere, which is just going to be mind-boggling to you and me. Like, we're from the Western world. For all intents and purposes, it's all fucking magic to me. We grew up as a kid, we're in a house, we haven't got to think about how the plumbing works, we haven't got to think about where we're going to get water from, we haven't got to think about where the food comes from. It's pretty much magic. And it's a shame, but to see around the other parts of the world, it's got to give you such a bigger appreciation for the things that you do and how you go about life.
Yeah, No, completely, man. Like, and I like your uh, thought on storytelling being like a way to connect nodes, essentially. Like, if you have someone with a problem, that black soldier fly thing, they exist everywhere in the tropics. So if like, and the amount of lodges which are just like the food waste is just going to waste. Like they have a commodity there which is super valuable. Um, and so like they're springing up all over the place. Like, and if you're in the tropics, then that black soldier fly video is like a gateway drug almost to you, using your food waste in a way which isn't just like good for the planet, but it's good for your business. Like the whole reason why that works is because it's good for business. You get
Yeah.
free eggs from your food waste. Yeah.
Yeah, well, effectively, unfortunately, people do work very selfishly, and the bottom line is important, regardless of how much you wish it weren't. So, if you can do something and share something which is going to not just save you money, but it's going to improve your bottom line and it's going to increase your profits, then regardless of whether you give a shit about the environment or not, this works. Because this works, you're going to make more money. Win-win all across the board. And because that works, and because they're making more money, and because it's cool as fuck, you get to live the life that you want to live, travel over there, make a video of it, and then hopefully that spreads on, just cascades to a massive snowball effect, which is some of the pros that we don't see about the social media at the moment in particular. But anyway, so from there, that was where you were working throughout COVID with a boy, and you were the sort of the guy that speak to the guests, and you just what did you call it? Sorry,
guest relations.
What was the job
Guest
title?
relations manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were the guest relations manager, and then they said, right, we're still going to pay you. You can stay there. We want you to basically make media and TikToks for the island.
They just said they didn't pay me anything. They just said you can live there, but we're going to cut your salary down to $100 a month, but you can just live there. But then again, so I had to like join the TikTok's dots up in my head, and I was like, okay, how do I make money? And I was like, okay, if you can't make a successful social media account at this current point in your life, then you are doomed to never do it, because who has that opportunity to have like those stories with those genius craftsmen on a tropical island
that much free
during
time,
a global pandemic? That much free time, dude. I had all the time in the world. I was getting my food. I had my roof. That's what I always say to like, well, anyone young, like teenagers, 20s, boys, girls, like just try and get room, food sorted, and as much free time as possible. And then like, that should be like the whole goal.
That is, oh, you are preaching to the choir here, brother. I'm in a van. Like, we're doing Australia in a van. We've done our budgeting to the penny that we know, well, we're not that great with our budgeting, but we did it originally to the penny, should I say. It's a little bit of leeway, where it's like, right, we know we've got somewhere we can stay and sleep. We know when we're going to be okay. We know we've got enough money for food. And based on what our budget is per week, we know how long we can do this for. To the point where we're looking at now, actively the next 18 months, you don't have to work a formal job. What do you do when you don't work a formal job? Like, it begs a question which so many people, I feel like, just don't ever think to answer and are never even asked in the first place. So I always love to ask everybody, which is, what do you do if money is no longer an issue? Let's say you've got a credit card. You've got a credit card which is got unlimited lines of credit, but you are only allowed to spend, let's say, maximum of £100 a day. 150 to 100. So you can't just go stupid. It's not like, oh, I'm going to get a private jet and I'm going to go this. So no. You've got to live a normal life, but you don't have to work for it. You don't have to earn money anymore. What would you do? What would you do if you had that? So many people don't answer that question anymore. They just think, I'm going to go and work to get a job and it's a means to an end. But yeah, but what is that end, really?
That's interesting. Dude, I was thinking about what my answer to that question would be, and it's exactly what I'm doing right now, which made me smile, being like, nice, I'm on a path which like, if you gave me that exact thing, I would change nothing. Like, I would be doing the exact thing. I like literally, sometimes I'm sleeping like on a beach above a rubbish tip, but like, I love it. I love everything about it.
You like, fucking love it. And then I'm so glad that was your answer, because that's my answer too. It's like, what would you be doing if you didn't have to worry about money? It's like exactly what I'm doing now. Perfect. Then you're doing the exact thing that you should be doing right now. And I find it so interesting because, again, that embracing your story when I first spoke to you on the phone after a few text messages, all I could hear was chickens in the background, and you were on a ship in the middle of where were you?
Yeah, I was crossing from Luzon to Samar, my first island crossing. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that was, to
in
me,
the
that was like,
Philippines.
you're doing it. You are doing it. You're living that life, and it's fucking amazing to see. So
Yeah, and I was next
just to get
to
back,
give the people listening a brief explanation of why you were hearing chickens on the boat. They have like gladiator chickens in the Philippines, so cockfighting is
you were
huge here,
saying, yeah.
and it's not like you can shut it down because you're like a vegan activist. It's like this is a 6,000-year tradition here, so like you're not touching the cockfighting of the Philippines, and they love it. So these chickens were being transported from one island to another because they're like celebrity cockfighting gladiator chickens, and they're going to do
So
battle with the chickens of Samar.
these were the top dogs. This is like the
Top
Champions
dogs.
League of cockfighting.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a
You do not get
European away day.
Yes, it's Real Madrid versus United. I only say that because I'm a United fan. It's not United anymore. Liverpool probably. God damn it. Or City. God, that was even more painful. But anyway, like yeah, essentially, like you don't pay. You don't.
Sorry.
You don't. Sorry. You don't pay for the chicken to cross to the next island if you don't think that chicken's gonna win. So like, I was sitting next to some gangster chickens.
You're sitting there next to these chickens. Like, people have spent more on these chickens than anyone has spent on you in the past 6 months.
100%, man. They live a charmed life, and it's like gladiators as well. If you win 5 fights as a gladiator chicken, you get retired. You don't do any more fighting. Your whole job is to have sex at that point because you're proving that you've got good genes. So they want to pass on those genes to the next gladiator chickens.
So it's like horse racing then. It's like a horse, once it's ran so many races and it can't run anymore, it's like, right, you're just going to live a cushy life. We're going to feed you. We're going to keep you warm. And then some lovely veterinarian assistant's going to come in and help you out.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's honestly like, yeah, I mean, what a life for the 0.1% of cocks and horses that make it, you know?
To be a cock or a horse. Oh yeah, these guys aren't eating your regular by sesame seeds right here. These guys are on popcorn. These are on proper popcorn.
Yeah, and they grew up on protein bars and they finished their life on popcorn.
So have you ever been to one of the cockfighting events then?
I haven't, dude, but driving past them, like, because I've said regarding the cockfighting thing, I want it to be like a story. I feel like if I go out of my way to go to one, then it's not as cool as it could be. Like, I want it to be like a random meeting or occurrence or just like a happening where I just end up at one, because then I think it's better rather than like planning it all out. I think that seems a little lame, especially as a storyteller. Like, I think it will naturally happen, just the amount of time I'm spending here. But dude, like when you drive past them, you would not believe like the noise. Like it sounds like an away day at Stoke, you know, like roaring going on. And then you're looking and like, as you're driving past
your away
these, like,
team's just scored.
Classic Stoke. But like, it is wild, dude. Like, so I know that when it does eventually happen, like it's crazy. They strap knives to their feet, you know? So like, it's going to be intense. Yeah. But I will go, I think, at one point. But I hope it just naturally happens.
So they've got knives strapped to their feet, war paint across the eyes, blades under each of the wings.
Chickens. They're not normal. They're like anime cocks.
Anime? Let's leave anime cocks out of this.
Don't Google that.
Don't Google anime cocks. God. So is it not illegal then? Is it firmly established, I take it? So like it's going to happen regardless. It's 100%. Not something that they're trying to... Yeah. It's not underground. I take it that... Right. This is just me being very westernized here and just envisioning everything as if it happened in like a noir or whatnot. It's like there's no mafia involvement, you'd imagine, in these...
I mean, there's probably not mafia. I imagine there is some like gang connection to it because money's changing hands. Lots of money's changing hands, but it's completely legal, and you will not be no one will be taking cockfighting from the Philippines. Like it's just it's part of the culture, man, part of the DNA of all these little towns. Like there's things you can guarantee in the Philippines. You can guarantee, well, the place that I've come through has all been Christian. So Catholic church, basketball court, and cockfighting arena in the towns. And those three seem to be the pillars. And like, I was talking to people about it. I was like, what's the most important? And they were like, the basketball court. Like, every guy who gets elected as like the local mayors, he promises a new basketball court, and then he gets elected because everyone gathers at the basketball court in the Philippines, which I
Yeah,
didn't
because
expect
you know
coming
what?
here.
Because you know what every basketball court has? It has a center
What?
circle, and that center circle is the perfect dimensions for a cockfight.
Aha, yeah, combining the two. Yeah.
Well, if you think, all right, putting this together piece by piece, if you think about it, like surely, like cockfighting, it's got to be as foolproof as possible for keeping it fair. Like it's not like you're betting on a basketball game where you can very easily pay people off or threaten people's families to fake a shot or commit so many amount of fouls. How are you going to do this with a fucking chicken? Like you're not.
Yeah, yeah.
But so like
No
if you're
chicken
saying
is
this is like
taking
this
a
is
dive.
yeah, people can go to casinos, they can count cards, like you can do a lot of things if there's human interaction. This is it's not complete luck. Like I take it there's a skill to it. I'd love to have somebody on who is an expert in cockfighting who can take me through it and what they do. But there's no way you're going to fake that. Not a chance.
No. I mean, I guess you could blunt the knives that they're attaching to the feet if you wanted to, like. But that again, I mean, you don't want to mess
Wait,
with
so
the
you weren't
Philippines.
joking? They actually do strap knives to the feet.
No, that's literally, and it's to the death. Like the cockerels don't normally kill each other without the weapons attached. So they strap knives to the feet so that one will definitely die. Like that's how intense it is, dude. Like I'm not joking. Like that's how they go about every Sunday, dude, as well. So they go to church in the morning, and then in the afternoon, it's wild, dude. I love this
Every
place.
Sunday.
I really do.
Every Sunday.
Yeah.
You go to church in the morning and you strap your cock with a knife in the afternoon.
It's wild. I bet you never thought
And
you'd
then
say that sentence.
No, I didn't. But it's done one thing for certain, and that's put Philippines on my list of places to go. Oh my
so
god,
cool.
that's incredible! I'd love to go to it. I'm not for it in terms of the animal humanitarianism, whatnot. It's not great. I don't know if that's a word. Animal humanitarianism, something like that. But
I
it
get
doesn't
what you
sound
mean.
great on paper.
Yeah, it doesn't sound.
It wouldn't sit right with me.
No, the bunny hugger in all of us doesn't like that idea of that it's pretty intense. Yeah, but like you
Yeah,
said, it
I
just
mean,
what a spectacle.
yeah, as a spectacle. That's all I mean it for. As in, I went to fucking Sea Life in Sydney and I walked around the shark tank and I was like, this is sad. Like, these sharks look sad. They've got no life in them. They're just drifting around. It's like, look at what humans have done. I felt sad looking at this bloodthirsty killer. I'm saying, I can imagine with chickens as well. It's not going to be great seeing that they're there and you're just going to kill each other so that some guy can make some money and I can watch. And that's fair enough. However, I'm a sucker for a good atmosphere, and if everyone's cheering what's going on, I'm like, I fucking God, no way!
It's
Like,
intense,
I'll be
dude.
watching this, just like, oh, this is incredible. Like, I love sports. Like, football games, soccer games, AFL games out here, basketball. I don't care about the sport. I don't even know if care if I know the rules, but I can get there with a group of people who are all screaming as if their life depended on it. And I'm like, this is us. This is community right here.
Yeah. No, it's part of the Philippines. Like, yeah, it's part of the DNA. And if you want the full Philippines experience, then like, yeah, I mean that's literally what they do. Like, or what a massive portion of the population do is go to these cockfights. And it's like I said, it's been going on for like 6,000 years here. Anything like that long lived. It's tough as an outsider to be like, that's bad. Like, you should stop doing that. It's like, fuck off.
Yeah, no, this is live. This is not the Western world's place to go poke their nose. Keep their beak out of the cockfights.
Yes, agreed.
Sorry, excuse the puns. No, it's interesting to see though, because that's one of the big things that you do see when you start to travel around and you see different cultures around the world. It's like you do see that people have different beliefs, and it is definitely not your place to say what's right and what's wrong. Like, you see it everywhere online, especially at the moment, where it's like, oh my God, you shouldn't be doing this because this affects these people and it's suppressing them and blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, that might be true from your point of view. But it's like a lot of these people do these things and it's a life they've lived. And if they're doing it and they're not complaining about it. They just get on with it. It's a part of life for them. Like, it's a way of
For
life.
sure.
And be more grateful that you get to experience their culture. And hopefully that means you're not as cynical about other people's cultures or what other people are doing and start focusing on yourself instead.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, it's always best to go in, especially if you're a newcomer to an area, go in like and just think you are the most ignorant or like person in the room. You know, you know the least of everyone there regarding their home. Is definitely the way to approach it, rather than going there and being like, I probably know more than these people because I did a GCSE in French. It's like, no, dude. Like, they've got generations of lived experience here. So before you start poking around and like trying to impose cultural aspects which you like don't agree with necessarily, it's always just best to just think that you are the dumbest guy in the room, I feel.
100%. It's that age-old thing, isn't it? Where it's right, the person who thinks that they know the most definitely knows the least.
For sure. That's like one of the aspects of like, I guess, becoming a man, or like gain, for me especially, you know how they say when you get to 25 as a dude, your prefrontal cortex solids up a little bit and you're like actually got an adult brain. I think like one of the main things for me, like the big switch from early 20s to late 20s, was just the realization I know literally nothing. Like, and then that
Oh
was great.
yeah. Fucking hell yeah, mate. I think that's just preaching to the choir again. Like, that has got to be just guys to a T, especially guys who've got that in them, to who want to go and do something, or they want to go travel, or they're kind of sick of that menial life like they've had at home for so long. Like, you have that throughout. Again, like going back to that, I don't know if it was on this portion or not, but going back to that, like, you leave formal education and like you pretty much think that you know it all. Like, let's be honest, because the way that the grading system works within schools, you go through school, you get graded on this, that, and whatever. You may have done well at certain things, may have done terribly at other things, but the things that you tend to be good at, whether you were graded well on it or not, you tend to think that, right, I'm just really good at this, and I'm always going to be really good at this because I've been told that I'm this good at this or this bad at this. You enter into the real world, and then you bring those thoughts with you. Like, you think you're a fully developed person because you've been surrounded by the same, really, 100 to 200 people in your school year for the past 7 years, like you say. And like, you think, if I'm like the top 5 or 10% at maths or whatever in these people, then I'm the top 5 or 10% in maths in the real world. And you just don't, you have that kind of bravado, especially as a guy.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, does life have a way of shooting that in your face and letting you know you're wrong?
100%, man. Like, one of the things which I just thought about it now is like, when if I was looking at this scene before me as a teenager, I'd be looking at the trees and stuff, and I'd be breaking it down like, okay, the trees, like, what do they do with their plant cells, the stem cells, the root cells? Like, I could like break it down, and because I knew the science behind like the theory of like how life lives and how things work, you come out of school sometimes with like a bit of a god complex. Like, I know what atoms are. Like, how many bipedal, creatures have known what atoms are since the start of time? And because you've got like this jump in understanding of the world that we've lived through, it's like that gives you such this inflated sense that because you've read it in a book and you seem to understand it, you have this knowledge of how it all works, and like it just doesn't, it just doesn't line up. You lose the magic of life, man. And then like the regaining of wisdom is like understanding that there is genuine magic to all of this, and like it's you didn't understand a tree because you read about photosynthesis when you were 14, and like you can't put that to the back of your mind and be like, tree's done, I completed it, mate. It's like, no, dude, you could spend your whole life trying to understand trees and
You'll never
still
get
not
it.
know if they talk to each other or the lived experience of a tree,
Yeah,
Yeah.
trees completed it, mate. No, you're dead right. You are dead right there, though. It's like, I look at it as terms of, there was a time for me where I was just kind of reevaluating things, and like, I was again in that same point most young guys get to. It's like, you kind of think, you don't know everything, but you kind of know you've. If you had to put a number on it, you'd probably say like, yeah, 80%. I know about 80%. Which is like fucking well off. But that's, everyone does, like, you have that kind of, again, you put it as a god complex. I'd say similar, but it's just in case, like, kind of like, you kind of feel like you don't need to know much more because you're pretty well rounded as it is. Couldn't be more far wrong. But then you have that, and then I was having those kind of thoughts, and I was thinking, I was like, right, do I actually want to know? Like, do I need to know more of certain things, or do I need to know it all? And then when I came to that realization of like, I don't need to know it all, then for me, I was just so much more involved with everything that I was doing. I was looked at everything so much more curiously, just like, my God, like this is incredible. You look at again, that it takes away the magic of the world when you think you know everything. But when you know for a fact that you don't know everything and you'll never know everything, then you can look at it in just pure amazement. Again, you can look at it like you say, looking at a tree, just like, holy fuck, this thing's fucking beautiful. It's like, whoa, like you're having a full on
Mm.
trip when you're completely sober. And like those moments from, again, around that 20 to 25 blows your world wide open. And then I look at it very optimistically, as in a lot of people, you've probably heard the term that quarter life crisis before,
Yeah.
especially with guys. And like, people say quarter life crisis at 25, like, what are you going to do? Is where a lot of guys take up fucking ultra running or fishing or whatever. The hair starts to recede and all that. But I did the math and I was looking at it just like, yes, I might have been 25 and that could be a quarter of your life as you look if you're lucky. But how much have you actually been conscious of? How much of for what period have you been able to make your own decisions and choose your own path? If you were being strict on like when you were an adult, you could say 18. And at 18 or you've lived for 7 years. So from 18, let's say you went from 18 to 75, that's like 7 out of 60. It's like 10%. If you were finished uni at like 21, that's only 4 years. If you had a little bit of a party life afterwards and you just didn't give a fuck for a while, it's only like you've only effectively been choosing what you want to do actively, consciously, like 1 to 2 years max. And if you look at that 1 to 2 years compared to the rest of your life, you got a hell of a lot of time. Hell of a lot of time if you choose to do it, to use it wisely.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. You're just you just got to count yourself one of the lucky ones if you get slapped in the face by living like consciously at the age of like, thank God you were conscious enough to have a quarter life crisis and you didn't just mindlessly plod along and just like drifted by. Like, I like that concept of getting into, ultra running or fishing or something. Cause at least like there's a moment of realization of, holy shit, I'm going to die one day. I got to start doing stuff. Like, go and get a van
Yeah.
and travel around Australia. Like, for sure, for sure. I think like that lighting of a fire under a young person, such a special moment. And it's just like, so just got to be grateful, even though it's scary. Just got to be so grateful that it happens because that's when you do, like you said, you start taking chances and you start realizing that the biggest, such a cliche, but the biggest risk is not taking risks at all. But it's true. Like
You can say,
imagine getting to your, sorry.
yeah, no, exactly. And imagine getting to your deathbed and realizing you hadn't taken any true risks. And that's the fear. That's the fear that a lot of people, well, I don't know. Me and you are quite alike in that regard, though. We want to do it. Like we have that fire underneath us to want to go out and do these things. I don't know. I can't. I physically cannot picture what it is like for somebody who doesn't have that.
Mm, it's tough, man. Because like there are people who need routine. I saw an interesting Instagram post the other day. It's like, you've probably seen this stuff. It's like a young lad in the UK. He does all these like reconnecting with nature videos, like runs barefoot through forests and like figures out about plants and teaches you. He does cool videos. I like him.
I think I know who you're
And he
talking
did
about. I
one.
think I know who you're talking about.
He did. He's got long hair, quite handsome chap. But like he did one video where he was like talking about traveling, and he was talking about, because obviously he's chosen to stay in the UK and chosen to like try to reconnect with the land that has been just so pillaged over the years. And his take on travel was like, why are people choosing to leave to reconnect with or connect with different lands, and like why aren't they choosing to stay at home and working to try and reconnect with their own homeland before they go off traveling? And I was thinking, it made me think, to be fair to him, about like why I've just fled from the UK, and I have this vision of the UK and this version of the UK which like I don't exist well in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Why do you think that is the case then?
For me, I always thought it was like about a comfort zone thing. Like, as soon as I realized that you're never going to be better adapted to being out of your comfort zone than as a young man or a young woman. It's like better to be uncomfortable now and comfortable in my 50s and 60s when I can't move as well as I can now. So for me, it was a comfort zone thing. I was like, how can I get out of my comfort zone immediately? And the fastest way possible I could see to do that was to literally just get out of the UK, immediately out of your comfort zone, because things aren't the way that they have been your whole life. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that dropping yourself into the unknown, quite literally kicking yourself off the edge of that cliff, you could be that abyss, is the fastest way to kind of have that awakening moment in particular. Is like, right, like we mentioned way back at the beginning of the podcast, where you feel alive, you have to be conscious of your decisions, and you are awake more than you've ever been awake beforehand in your life. And comparing that to the people who are just in the UK or at home, wherever that might be, I come to think of it, instead of thinking of it as I am one of the just what lucky ones who's had my own set of experiences which have led me to where I am now, because I'm very fucking grateful to have that, as I'm sure you are as well, for your set of the good, the bad, the ugly, the things that whatever happened led you to where you are now with your own mindset on it. And the best way for that to kind of keep going upwards is to just be grateful for it. And it just keeps on going and going and going, and it compounds and compounds. But I don't think of it as something that I have which other people don't have. I think of it more so as maybe I'm lacking something that they have already found at home. Because somebody told me beforehand that a lot of people travel. A lot of people travel all around the world to find out that all they ever wanted was already on the doorstep. And I heard that and I was like, that could be true. It could be. I don't feel it yet, but it might be true. But at the same time, maybe these people are just, maybe the 9-to-5ers, the office workers and whatever, or the tradies or the bricklayers, whatever, the doctors, nurses, whoever there is out there who is living that 9-to-5 lifestyle or even shift lifestyle in the UK, if they're comfortable enough where they are, they're not going to leave. Like, your seat's got to be sufficiently uncomfortable for you to want to get up and find a different one. So maybe we're the outcasts. Maybe we're the ones of something's not quite right.
For sure, man. Like,
would I change it?
Well, I'm just thinking about things that I've done in the past week, which you wouldn't normally do, like having to take a poo while spearfishing like 50 meters out in the ocean just because I needed to do it. And I remember doing it and it just being so natural and just thinking, dude, there was a time where like I couldn't even like go to the bathroom outside of my own house. Like I couldn't do it I couldn't do it in like a public toilet or anything. Like I was so, like, you know, I was in my little routine and system. And then like all of a sudden just 50 meters out to sea, just being like, yeah, this seems like the right thing to do. Sharks, turtles, just, you know, just pooing in the sea. Like there's certain things with like, it's become normalized over time, I guess, which actually looking at it now it's quite strange.
It is quite strange to look at the things that you do now. Like, you obviously where you are now, you don't have a choice. You just do them. There's so many cultural things that we were just born and bred into being the norm in the UK or living and growing up at home, which you don't realise like how much you don't actually need to do them. The big one, obviously, well, we can go from big things like the 9-to-5. Don't need to work a 9-to-5 job. Anybody who's watching, you don't need to work a 9-to-5 job. But like, you just feel like you have to. You feel like you have to do it. You feel like you have to go to uni, finish your courses, and then you have to make your parents proud, move out, have kids, blah, 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 blah. Great lifestyle for those, but you don't have to do it. All the way down to the menial things like, Katie, my girlfriend's going to hate me for this. So I remember when we first got to Australia, well, not first, but the first couple of weeks of Australia, the first couple of weeks of van life, we were out in the middle of nowhere, just camped up. And Katie was there, it's like, you need to drive, you need to find me a Portaloo, you need to find a toilet somewhere. I was like, Katie, we're in the middle of a national park. We are nowhere near a toilet. And she says, you're going to have to go find one. So I say to her, like, okay, yeah, the sat-nav says that there's one about 20 minutes this way. I was like, okay, let's keep driving. I was like, okay, we kept on driving because I'm not turning around. But she's adamant at this point, like screaming at me, it's like, we need to find a toilet. I was like, we're not going to find a toilet. Lo and behold, nature has Katie's number on speed dial at this point. It's like, it's coming. And then she had her very in her lifetime, she's from West Sussex in the UK, farm girl, but she's always been around like civilization. Her first ever nature poo. And I was so proud of her, so proud of her. She looked at me afterwards and
It's,
she was like, "That wasn't too bad." I was
see,
like,
there's
"Yeah, it
something
wasn't
so
at
huge.
all."
It's probably a strange topic of the podcast. We're gonna have to move on from quite quickly. But there's something so humanizing about it, and there's something so like, oh no way! It's like honestly, it works. Toilets. We didn't evolve with toilets the whole time, but like when you've had it your whole life, you just have never joined the dots. Like
No, you don't realize how much
you just sort of
easier it
squat
is.
down.
It's so much easier. It's so much more hygienic. It's just got to be better for you in some way or another. But and
No,
since
it's
then,
way better for you. All the celebrities in LA, they have little stools next to their toilet so they can squat down, just like they're doing it in the Masai Mara. Like it's because it's the healthiest way to do it. It's how we're built to do it.
I love the idea, which I hope I can put into everyone's head watching, of Tom Cruise stooping over a luxury gold-plated marble hole in the floor
Mm, dropping it
in
like
the
he should.
Hollywood
Dropping.
Hills. Yes, please let's move on. Oh, but yeah, it's natural. It's nice. It feels good. Fucking try it. But yeah, so right, bring it all back around. I'm just trying to pick up where you left off. So you had a job in during lockdown
Yeah.
where
So
you had to kind of.
TikTok blew up. Yeah, boom, during COVID. Yeah, and then from that, I had all of a sudden I had 145,000 followers, and I went back to the UK after a year of COVID. And then when I was in the UK, I had all these followers, but my time of storytelling and bamboo genius isn't a boy was over. So I was like, what am I going to do with these 145,000 eyeballs? Now I'm back to being just a boy living in his parents' house in Chester because of COVID. And then I got a call from my mate Jasper, who I went to uni with, and I've sort of explored a lot of the world with. We sort of broke up with our girlfriends at similar times and sort of became each other's platonic boyfriends and just traveled the world together. Yeah. And then he's a Kenyan lad, so he's grown up his whole life in Kenya, and he just gave me a ring after Christmas, and he was like, "Josh, we're on these islands just outside of Somalia. We're catching so many tuna out of this like rubber dinghy in Somalia," and I'm like on the phone, like, "Oh my god! Like if I can combine these boys' adventures with my like content and storytelling, then we could do some cool stuff." So I told him how many followers I now had on TikTok, and he was like, "Get on a plane immediately, and we'll just go make adventure content." So that's what I did. Got on a plane to Kenya in March 2021.
So how was that feeling then of knowing? Because obviously we've seen it from the same generations, like of how TikTok and social media works now, and it's almost like you see it as a bit of a gold mine. It's a life-changing moment. How did that feel, just kind of waking up one day and seeing like 4 million views on one of your posts and thinking to yourself straight away that this is now life-changing?
I just like, man, I wanted to make YouTube videos like since I was, I don't know, at university. I was like, I know that like having that following can open doors. And if you have like, you can just live a life exactly how you want to live it as long as you can share it in a way which makes people care. I knew that that was like an option. Just never knew like how to join the dots. Like I tried gaming, I tried all sorts of things I wasn't passionate about just to try and make that work. As soon as like I figured out that you could do storytelling through a medium with video, like TikTok and Instagram. And then as soon as like I joined the dots and those things, I was like, no way, I have got something which I could create this life where I just live the exact life that I want and then package it with storytelling and put it on TikTok. And as soon as that blew up, I was like, it was such a verifying moment, I guess. Like that the vision wasn't insane. It could be done. Because me and my dad works in video. He's been in marketing and advertising his whole life. So he's got what I have in terms of storytelling, but he's been using it in a more conventional sense, probably because I was born. So I may have like, scuppered his dreams of being a poet or whatever, because he was like, need to make money. And the quickest way to make money, if you're good with words, is to go into marketing. So like, we would have battles, these huge battles about, what do you mean you're going to make money from the internet? Just living the exact life you want and getting paid for that. He was like, no. He was like, you need to go work for the BBC or Nat Geo as like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, dad, promise me. I promise you. But like, we used to have these giant battles. So like
Oh,
when that happened, pardon?
Yeah, so sorry, it's a little bit of a lag. Well, I mean, honestly, I think the exact same thing. So my dad was an artist, grew up doing painting, drawing, doing all that stuff, photography, loved it, and he was really good at it as well. And then when I came along, he went into graphic design and printing. So a very similar field. Again, just you talking about the sort of not so much arguments, but it was almost like a I'll show you kind of like kind of thing where it's almost like a lot of parents with today's day and age. It's not that they don't understand it. I feel like they just kind of feel that it's not. I got the impression that for them it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
had to do something which they still did it along their what they wanted to do. They still did it in their own area in their own arena, but it wasn't entirely as they imagined it when they were younger. And the compromises that they had to make for us, it almost seems unfair that anybody should have to go and live a life where they haven't got to do, they haven't got to compromise on certain things for certain reasons.
For sure. 100%. Like that's something that I have to like, I mean, all you can do is just appreciate it. I guess the best gift you could give to your parents if they are like they have had to sacrifice part of a dream. Like my dad, he would have loved to pursue acting. He would have loved to. Right now, like he does that. He does that. Like now he's retired. He saw what I'm doing on TikTok. Everything I do, my dad does because he's the same person as me. So when I started TikTok, my dad started TikTok. He does poems. He'll wake up in the morning. He'll write a poem about a robin he sees in the garden, and he'll read his poem to his TikTok followers, like 104 TikTok followers. But like that's a bit of creative expression for him, you know. And then when I joined Medium, Dad at first, like again, battling me a little bit about no, you should give the articles to magazines, then you'll definitely make money. And I was like, no, you can build a following, and like it's good for your public image, blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden, it starts going well for me, and then he starts writing articles. So it's been a bit like it's been nice for me and my dad. Our relationship was like improved more and more and more the more I've delved into that world of like just sharing stuff and trying to make a living from the internet. Because my dad's realized, even though he's 60 years old, there's nothing stopping him from doing that now. Luckily, he still has that option to like write. So my like exploration of that has opened up that world to him, which is nice. It's like it's not
That's
over for him.
incredible. That's incredible that that's sparked not so much an interest, but a
Hi.
realization that that's what he can do. Oh, there's a dog. I saw the dogs walking from the background.
Yeah, there's a dog. He's
Um,
here.
but yeah, well, it's a realization because then again, if he's retired now and it's something he's always wanted to do within that field as well, it's not something that you have to be young to do. It's not like a physical laborious job where you need all of your physical faculties in order to do. Like if it's something you're passionate about, that creativity and that freedom and that now seeing a way into that in this new world, which was so confusing to him, like it's impossible to ignore now. And I feel like there's a definite space for an older generation of creators who have skills and wisdom which so many of us folk don't have. And there's space for it and it can work. And if anything else, as you say, it's a creative outlet. And like we all need a creative outlet. Writing,
Yeah.
photography, singing, poetry, art itself, sports, recreation. For me, talking to people as a creative outlet, I fucking love it. I love talking to people like yourself. It's great. And if you don't have that for so long, it's just, you can see the life in people's face just kind of drop the longer that they go in their life without having something that they are truly passionate about and they love to do, having to worry about taking the money out of it. If they can't do it, whatever it is, then over so long, it just kind of saps them of what they've got. But if at any age in your life you can find people if any age in your life you can find something that you love to do, whether you're good at it or not, but you enjoy it, it's only going to mean positive things. I'm so glad that you and what's your dad's name?
Andy. Yeah.
So glad that you and Andy can do that, and you can help him with that as well. It's great.
No, it has been like it's been a really nice. Like you like there was Jordan Peterson did a lecture on Pinocchio and on like the deep meanings in Pinocchio and why we like it so much, why a child is just fascinated by Pinocchio and adults are fascinated by Pinocchio. And there was a scene in it which is super important, which is where Pinocchio has to go and save his father from the belly of the whale. And it's like his final task is to like take the risk, dive down, and he saves Geppetto from the whale as, you know, the wooden boy. And that's what changes him into the real boy. And like that, and apparently like that's part of becoming a man, you know, it's part of like growing up, is like you actually having an understanding of the world which is different to theirs because you grew up in a different time, and you can actually extend your hand and like give them some help in this changed world. So yeah, that's how I feel like mine and my dad's relationships like been helped out a lot through me finding these creative outlets, and then him coming on board with me. Yeah, it's been great.
No, it's great. I mean, it's that handing down of the guard as well. It's that passing on the shield. It's got to be difficult for a parent in particular to see their child growing up, thinking what of all the reasons in their head that they think these things won't work, and then to see you keep going at it anyway. And then it's more of a realization for them that, like, maybe, again, like we were speaking about earlier, maybe they don't know everything that there is to know just because they're older, just because they've got that Asian experience in a different area. And it'll soon be our time to look at our children and be like, okay, maybe this new world, like I look at it already with AI and think, no idea. Don't know what's going to happen. But like in the next 5, 10, 15 years, we're going to have people growing up with this around them who are going to be coming to us and saying all of these different things that you can do and different ideas, which are going to be so alien to us. But being open to those experiences and having them is to have that lesson, to have seen that now and to have lived that with your dad. It's a great thing.
Yeah, it's been unexpected that our relationship could grow so much while we're so far apart. The past six years, we've become the closest we've ever been, and it's happened when we've had spent the least time together. But like, it's nice. It's nice.
And whether it's replicable or not, whether it's sustainable or not, to see those numbers come in, it's such a validating moment, isn't it? Where you finally look at it and think, wait, this is not only feasible, but you're actually entertaining and helping a hell of a lot of people here.
Yeah, it's like the fact that it was storytelling with purpose was so good, because it meant like I could
Yeah.
pursue something which would actually leave a positive trail behind me. And like this battle that I was in with myself to like gain a following, to live whichever life I wanted, it never crossed my mind that I could like do it and tell sustainability stories and conservation stories. And that's another thing I love about social media, as a creator, is you can like put out things and it will tell you, the universe will tell you, or the people will tell you if they like it or not. And the fact that I put out a sustainability story and then people came back being like, you know, all those videos you did on the beach, on the 5-star island, like flouncing around like a travel influencer, they were like, we don't care about that. They were like, we care about the maggots in the bins at the back. And I was like, yes, they care about the maggots in the bins at the
Bring on
back.
the maggots.
Maggots. So that was great. Yeah, yeah. Like that for me was, I had a giant smile across my face, because the biggest bit of content I have ever made in my entire life was about the guy who looks after the bins. It wasn't about the tropical Indonesian ocean or anything.
Yeah, no, I'm such a firm believer in that passion comes out in everything that you do. If you're doing something, anything, regardless of whatever it is, if there's no passion in what you do and you don't actually enjoy it, regardless of if you said the exact same thing and followed the exact same line, people will tell the difference. There'll be a slight smirk or expression which people won't resonate, and people will know you're not being authentic. To that extent, that I don't actually believe that it matters what you're passionate about. But as long as you are, then it's going to come through and that's going to resonate and that's going to work. And if you can do that in a way, like you say, which is going to help so many people, and just by sharing their story, inspiring people to do similar things, inspiring people, opening their world up to a whole new point of view, fuck, it blows my mind every time. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing now without that kind of awe-inspiring magic that you get from the reaction, from the response, from feeling that you are doing well, not in terms of numbers, but in terms of experience for other people.
Yeah, yeah. I guess for you, that's where that Fun for Louis guy had left his little imprint, and then you think about how many imprints that actually did leave. Like if he's got 2 million subscribers, And like you said, that was your first opening eyes up, being like, this guy's just living life, traveling around to Colombia and stuff. And that's an option in life. Like you don't think about the trail of other people that your content is hitting along the way. Because to me, like you look on the screen, you're like, 150,000 people watch that, and the phone goes back in the pocket. But there's no, because humans aren't built to like gain emotions from the numbers on the phone. Like I look at the numbers, I see numbers, I'm like, oh cool. But then you don't think about like that's 150,000 like living people, and like the
Yeah,
chance
that
maybe
is like
one or two
a
of them
Wembley
will change.
Stadium and a half. You imagine you're standing in the middle of Wembley Stadium and people are standing outside trying to get in on Wembley Way, all to watch you perform what you just performed. It's fucking mind blowing. That's bonkers.
It is when you actually think
That's
about it
what
like that, right? Yeah.
it's ridiculous and it's unheard of across across history until now. And to me, it's not so much those people that you reach; it's that very select handful of people who, without seeing what you've put out there, would be worse off, without us even knowing, would be worse off because of that. For me, that like Fun Flu is a great example of it because I watched like his videos religiously whenever they came out every Friday at 6 p.m. and I was like, this guy's so cool. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. If I didn't have that exposure to that from a young age, I may not be exactly where I am right here. From somebody I've never met, never seen in person, don't think I've even been in the vicinity of, like, to the nearest like 50 miles. And I'm like, that's crazy. That's ridiculous. That's changed my life. That little butterfly effect has changed my life. Whether or not he knows it or not. And the same for what you've done and what you are doing. Whether or not you know it or not, there's going to be a very select few people who will go on to have an impact in the world in an area that they are more passionate about. That may have been the straw that broke the camel's back, or it may have been the very first domino. We don't know. Of chain of events, which may lead to them traveling across the Philippines. It may lead to them doing something within that same area, within sustainability. You don't know. But without it, who knows? It's crazy to me, and it's crazy that the impact that it has, and it's to be able to do that whilst traveling the world. It's not everyone can do it, but it's fucking so cool, and it's so good, and it's so beautiful at the same time.
Yeah. It's an interesting time for storytelling. It really is. Like have you read *Sapiens*, with the bit where he talks about storytelling was how we used to pass down information, like through generations into different tribes. It's
Yeah,
all storytelling. It wasn't any like data or anything. It was just storytelling. It's like we tried this in our tribe and we caught more monkeys, or we tried this with our tribe and we did X, Y, Z. Like, and then now it's like storytelling, it's still relevant. It's just morphed into this different thing where now like
yeah.
the stories that you're telling, it's not just man to man, person to person, woman to woman. Like it's like every story has the potential to reach pretty much every eyeball in the world. It's like a bizarre time.
Well, the better you can tell a story, the better that story spreads. And we've been as you say, like we've been doing it for generations and generations. From like I can't remember the guy's name. Is it Yuva? It's got a strange name. And
Yeah,
the guy who wrote
Yuval
*Sapiens*.
Noah Harari, something.
Yeah, that's the one. Yuvis. Yeah. But like from in the cave paintings, and then the best example I think of is religion. Like whether you're religious or not religious, you cannot deny these stories, these parables, they're fucking hits. They are like box office hits.
100%. Yeah.
And it's no different to it's like the clickbait that people use now in terms of getting people to watch their videos, and then the story tactics, and then all the little things people wouldn't realize when they're watching an Instagram video or a reel, that people have looked at the engagement rates for different things, and all these little tactics that people use now, people were using in a completely different medium back all the way back then. Where you look at all these mythical, magical stories that are in the Bible and in other prophecies, books, and scripture, they all explain some magical, mysterious thing, often with talking animals and parting of the sea and blah, 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 blah. But when you read into it, the metaphor behind it is the true story that they're trying to tell with every case. And
Yeah,
it's just
that's a
how
good point. I
they
like.
kind of
Sorry.
go on.
I got excited. I was going to say, like, the wisdom which you're talking about in those stories. It's interesting. Like, I came from a little bit of a Christian background, but I don't know the Bible. I've never read the Bible, but like it's like full circle. Once you learn these life lessons through like throwing yourself out into the world as a young man, like you said, and then you go and like understand some of the stories in the Bible, you do realize that the wisdom is there. Like all these lessons that you've been learning just by plowing yourself headfirst into like the world and like getting knocked down, picked up, knocked down, picked up, and like learning it. Like those stories are there. Like it's not like the Bible's saying anything, or like like be humble. You know that you know nothing. All this stuff. You realize that that is true wisdom. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and it's
it's
true
true.
wisdom, whether or not you relate it to a god or not, whether it's more of an Eastern religion of the god of yourself or whatever it might be. Those stories are true to all of us. And again, the more you are out, you'll probably find this more than I do, but the more that you are out of your comfort zone, really awake and aware, and again, going back to that, all your decisions during the day whilst you're traveling on an e-bike in the Philippines all make a difference. You're so much more unconsciously aware and susceptible to the reactions that you get from them. Like what you do, you notice the chain reactions from your decisions. Because like, oh fuck, I could have been nice to this person or spoken to this person who could have let me charge my bike, but I wasn't, and he didn't. Therefore, I am now out of juice in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah,
Lesson
yeah.
there.
No, I notice it, man. I notice it in myself, like the way that, like, even if I'm angry and pissed off because of a few interactions down the line, and I have to catch myself in these pissed off moments because I will get to a stage where I'm like, can't do this, can't do that. Like there's certain things in a day where if I have 3 or 4 bad moments, and then I'm in a pissed off mood, that it's you have to really control that to talk to the next person because you have nothing. Like you have no food, you can't carry any water, and you have the way of you moving around requires you to plug into electricity, which you don't own. So like you can't afford to be pissed off. Like there's like you have to completely reset every time and go in smiling, happy. It's yeah, it's been I've learned a lot in just these 5 weeks of it's been a it's been good for me as to control my emotions, you know, not like and have to reset. It's been like it's been something I didn't expect, but something that has been one of the main things of the whole trip is that ability to reset and approach everything as like a rational guy rather than hot-headed and you know all emotional, I guess.
So would you say that's something which has changed your kind of own personal philosophies since starting your adventure 7 years ago?
Uh, I mean, there's like certain things that have like just really stand out. The number one was like I learned to be honest from this group of Kazakhstan kids who I was taking around a trip around Malaysia. I was doing a school trip, and at this point, I just started the traveling thing, so I was like learning fast. Everything was fun, but I didn't have anything figured out. I had no like life rules. I had no like I didn't even know being honest was a thing. Like because I could tell stories, and I learned that I could make these stories up or make up big parts of these stories. And people would think I was way cooler than if I just stuck to the truth. But for that reason, my relationships weren't like as real as they could have been. And I wasn't happy with who I was myself. And I had no idea why. I was just this 25-year-old kid who was like trying to figure things out. And this group of Kazakhstan kids I was taking around Malaysia, they made me almost have a panic attack on a bus because they were so funny, they were so genuine, and they had such good connections between each other. I couldn't figure out why these 12-year-old kids had life figured out more than I did. And it made me almost have an anxiety attack on a bus trying to figure this out. And I had this like whole body realization of like, oh, they don't lie ever. They haven't lied in the 14 days I've been with them. They're incapable of lying. They just tell the truth. And for that reason, they were just the best group of school kids I'd ever taken anywhere. And they taught me a lesson. They taught me about honesty. And I just from that moment, that was like the first big lesson of traveling. Like I was like, I'm gonna test this out. Like 1 week where I just told the truth, and my life got better like immeasurably, like overnight, and like all of my connections improved. And it was just like, no fucking way. It's like if you're just honest, like people like you more, dude, and you like become funny. Like you're saying something in your head which is honest. You don't think it's funny. Someone starts laughing, and the whole reason they're laughing is like because they connect with like an authentic bit of that joke. And I loved making people laugh. And I didn't have to be a bullshitter to do it. You can just be honest. People just start laughing at you. It's great.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Like for me, I had that exact same one with honesty. Not so much honesty as well, but honesty coupled with again that authenticity and like going into things with that, well, effectively with no intention other than to have a good time and to connect with people. And I found this out the in one of the best ways possible was when I went on that season in Greece. So when I went on the season in Greece, again, I'd come into it, I was been out of a relationship, I was just a guy, I was been working out a load in the gym, and I went out, there was loads and loads of like just absolutely stunning women around everywhere, and like you just go out on the pool, and like you go out and try it on the pool, and you try and pull a girl, something like that. And then I just kind of noticed after just going up and getting rejected every single time, that after a while I just like said, at some point during the night, I'd always say, fuck it, whatever, I'm just going to have a good time. And if someone wants to have a good time with me, we're going to have an absolutely fucking phenomenal time instead. Regardless of whether it ends in going back to someone's or whether I get a number or whatever it is, we're going to have a great time. Bullet of the night, maybe I'll see you another time. Without fail, after the first week, after the first like few days of doing this, not for the intention of trying to pull anyone, but just with the intention of going out to have a great time, the amount of people who are more drawn towards me as a person, the better connections I had, the better friends I made, the more I'd spoken to people. This is people I'd already been there with for like a week or two, who are like, in my head, I was just like, I kind of know you or get you already. Then I kind of chucked that out of my mind, and I just thought, I don't know you, let's just go and have a great time. And then they just started talking to me more, I'd talk to them more, made some absolutely amazing friends, and pulled a bunch more alongside without even trying to. I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is crazy. Yeah. And like that whole, for the rest of that time in Greece, for the next couple of months. So yeah, because I was there for 3 months in total. So for the next 2 months afterwards, every engagement I went into, every conversation, every time I spoke to anybody, guy, girl, adult or a child or not, because I worked in childcare as well, I went into it purely as, I'm going to enjoy myself talking to you regardless of whatever else happens. If you want to enjoy yourself with me, great. If you don't, that's fine. See you later. And we'll see where we go from there. And again, those meaningful connections, that honesty that came with that just something that blew my mind. And I've got, Greece is where I met my girlfriend who I'm with currently. And that's where I met her. It's where I met so many of my great friends who I speak to all the time. And it's like, it holds such a fond place in my heart because of the lesson that I learned within the first week or two of being there.
Yeah, that's like, and it's almost like a relief when you learn a lesson like that, because realistically, you always wanted to just act like your authentic self and have people like you. That's what you wanted from the get-go. It was just this like little monkey part of your brain, which was like, going out on the pool, lads, like, all right, girls, just like, and like, I imagine that it's almost like the relief feeling, like your shoulders dropping, being like, oh, thank God, I don't have to be that guy who like to get girls to like, I could just be myself. Oh, thank God, like, I love that feeling of relief when you get a life realization and you realize that the way to act or the way to be is the exact way that you want to act and be to get things that you also like want to happen. So that's, yeah, it's nice little facet of life, that when those things come together.
And how often is that the case though, whether it be relationships, whether it be work, whether it be anything, like in the same vein, going back to you creating videos that were authentic for yourself, with helping sustainability, being in a place that you love with people that you found incredible and you were learning a lot, and for that one video to be the one that propelled you to where you are now, and the get-go is like, again, that weight off the shoulders is like, wait a minute, I don't have to be anybody else other than myself. And not only is that good enough, but if I want to be successful in any way or regard, the only way to do that, and to do that sustainably, and to do that in a way that's going to grow naturally over time, is to be yourself and be authentic. And the only way that that's going to work and have that consistency over time to compound and get better over maybe years is if you enjoy doing it. So the lessons for that, for me, when it comes to any conversation or it's more of a way of life for me now, is right, if I'm going to do anything, I best enjoy it and be authentic with it. And if I am those two things, then everything else doesn't really fucking matter. whether it works out or not for quote unquote success, you're gonna get a hell of a lot more out of it, and you're gonna learn a lot more. You're gonna make some incredible friends. You're gonna have an absolute fucking whirlwind of an experience, and that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
It is. It definitely is. Pack in as much of that as you can in life, and you will die a very happy man or woman.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, you've been doing it for 7 years so far, and does that make you 31? If I'm
Yeah.
good at maths, yeah, yeah. So at 31 now, again, that 7 years for you must have felt like lifetimes so far.
Yeah. And it's been, the chapters have just been so crazy, man. Like if I was, me and my dad were like going through, because these stories I'm writing for Medium are eventually going to be put into a book about some of the things that's going on. And we're going through like chapter titles together. And he was like, "What do we call this one?" And you actually go through the story, and you're just like, "Holy!" Like the Tuk Tuk to Africa story, the time I drowned in Timor Leste, the working on the private island, like going through the chapter titles. My dad was just like, "You really have like." You don't like the book that you could write based just on these chapter titles. It was like, if you can provide the story to go with the chapter title and it not be bullshit, it was like people will not believe the 7 years that you've had. Like they won't. So
Oh,
yeah, it's been
it's
great.
crazy. Have you read The Backpacker?
No.
Oh, I'm gonna have to type this up because I can't remember who the author was, but it is. I bought it when coming out to Australia, and it is absolutely just incredible. It's his true
Sick.
stories of whilst backpacking around the world, and it's like a lot of it around typical areas of. Oh wait, no, that's not it. This is where I need my own producer to be able to search these things for me in the background.
Jamie.
Jamie, search it up, JMO. I'm just getting it up now whilst it's here. Yeah, so The Backpacker by John Harris. If you can find it anywhere or have it on Kindle on your phone or
I
whatever,
will.
then give it a read. It is fucking phenomenal from his stories traveling around. Well, he was originally in India with his girlfriend after leaving his corporate job in London. And then he went from his corporate job in London to India with his girlfriend, supposedly only for a few weeks. Girlfriend hated it, got Delhi belly straight away, and ended up going home. He meets a guy who says, "Fuck this, India's shit, come to Thailand with me." Ends up going over to Thailand, and then all hell just breaks loose where they go to the craziest parties, they get mistaken for royalty and celebrities, they get involved with the gangs and running away from gang warfare and people trying to kill them, and it's like, oh my God.
Intense.
Goosebumps. And to see some of your stuff, this is what I wanted to go on to from beforehand. Will you take me through some of the articles that you've got here on Medium? Because
For sure.
it's crazy.
For sure. Because
So,
they're like the deduce 7 years down to like so far I think 20 stories. But like that's the best, like the juicy bits, you know? All on
yeah.
Medium.
Yeah. Well, first, so the first one we've got is we found the largest elephant in Kenya whilst driving a tuk-tuk. Before going
Yeah.
into the elephant part, we've kind of already led up to here now anyway, where you were coming to travel around Africa with your friend who was Kenyan. How did the tuk-tuk
Yeah.
thing come about, and what were you actually doing?
We were cruising around Kenya for like, there's no one in Kenya tourist wise, which never happens. Normally Kenya is full of tourists. So like these areas like the Masai Mara or like these incredible zones at the Aberdares mountain range, Mount Kenya, Kilimanjaro, you're going to have like a lot of people there.
This is just post-COVID then?
Just post-COVID, yeah. So we had the privilege of exploring that region without anyone in it. So like we were doing it for like 6 months of just exploring, just getting cars, tents, and just driving into the bush and just living in the bush for weeks at a time. It was great. And then we were living this life and thinking about ways that we could like do more. Like how do I got easy. Like we were driving to Ethiopia over 3 weeks and like camping, like trying to make it as difficult for ourselves as possible. Like there's hardly any drinkable water on the border between Kenya and Ethiopia. Like it's as wild as it gets. And there was just this itch that we weren't quite scratching because we had cars, we had jacks, like there was good telephone signal everywhere in Kenya. It's like we need to almost like make a mission which doesn't loop back to Jasper's house. And then we were talking to a lot of the wildlife rangers who were responsible for protecting these wild areas, and they were getting messed up by COVID because none of the international dollars were coming in to pay their wages. So a lot of them were like having to deal with this giant increase in poaching because people had lost their jobs and they had a pay cut. So and it's dangerous being a wildlife ranger. You're getting shot at by elephant poachers and like rhino poachers. So we realized that we could like combine the storytelling aspect with raising money for wildlife rangers by just picking a really weird vehicle to travel through Africa in, and then like tell the story of wildlife rangers, get them a bit of exposure, try and raise some money at the same time, and then go on an adventure of trying to get two tuk-tuks from the equator in Kenya to Cape Town in South Africa. So that was like, it was basically like dreamed up over like a few beers at Jasper's house. And there was a Zimbabwean lady there, and she couldn't say TikTok. She could only say tuk tuk. So she was like, so tell me more about these tuk tuks you boys are making. Tell me more about these tuk tuks. I was like, TikToks. We make TikToks. And she went, well, tell me about these tuk tuks. And I was like, oh, no way. She's a genius. And then literally like a few months later, we bought the tuk tuks and we started driving.
Whilst you're pissed, I'm like, oh my god, this was meant to be.
It was meant to be. Thank God for that drunk Zimbabwean lady.
Oh, so you ended up driving around speaking with all of the rangers who are protecting the wildlife in Kenya. Well, across the Kenyan border, was it you said?
Yeah, so we drove to we went all over Kenya, man. Like Aberdares, we drove over so many places, and we just spoke to a lot of wildlife rangers. Yeah, and that's how like the idea for the tuk tuk mission came about. And then when we bought the tuk tuk, we started driving south from Mount Kenya. We crossed the equator line as our start line, which was quite cool. So like that was the
Ah,
start line,
sick.
going across, and then we just started going south. And the first place we stopped was next to Mount Kilimanjaro, which is the area of like these mammoths, man. Like there are elephants and then there are elephants, and they have these things called super tuskers in the on the foothills of Mount Kenya. And these things, man, they change like your like concept of what an elephant actually is, because like there's so few of them. They got reduced down to about 20 in the world by ivory poaching, because obviously if there's an elephant with a tusk out there which is 2 meters long, then it's worth
Oh,
millions of
yeah,
dollars. So
shit,
they
yeah.
whack the elephant. So because they've been whacking these big tuskers for so long, all of a sudden there's just none left. But there's a few. There's just a few left, big tuskers in the world, and most of them are in Kenya, around that Amboseli ecosystem. And like we got there in the tuk tuk, we spent a lot of time with the rangers, filming, having fun, like camping in the wild there. And then on one day, one of the rangers who we were friends with was like, you know, one of the biggest elephants in the world has just entered the park for the first time in 10 years. He was like, do you reckon you can get your tuk tuk through that mud? And we looked at him, we were like, we will die
We will
before we go
carry it
see
through
this.
it if we need
Yeah,
to.
we will literally, we can carry it, it's light. So we all hopped in the tuk tuk and we just dragged this thing, kicking and squealing through some of the worst, like, roads that Africa had to offer, got it out of the mud onto the plains. We're like sunsetting over Kilimanjaro. We are like flying towards where the last sighting of this elephant was in a tuk-tuk. Like normally people are just there in Land Cruisers or helicopters. There's no room for tuk-tuks here. It's like the African bush. And like, so we like boosted, we managed to like get just before the light like went down past Kilimanjaro. We like went around a bush and we just literally just saw one of the biggest elephants in the world, certainly the biggest tusker in the world. He's called Craig, and he had tusks which are over 2 meters long, 2 meter long tusks.
Jesus
So
Christ. So if his tusks are 2 meters long, how tall is the actual elephant?
just enormous,
If you
man,
can still call it an
enormous.
elephant.
It's like a mammoth at that stage. Honestly, it just like he was a head above the next biggest elephant in the herd, like a whole elephant head above it. It was like looking at one of those things from Lord of the Rings, the Oliphants, the Mummikills. Like it just defied logic. And then to see him ever in any circumstance is cool. Like if you've seen Craig, you've seen the living symbol of elephant conservation in Africa. The whole fact that he's alive today is a victory that humans didn't let tuskers go extinct. So just to see him is incredible. Not many people will get the chance to see him in their lifetime, but to be able to see him completely alone with your three best mates driving a tuk-tuk was like a completely different, like it was the first moment of the trip where I just like was nodding like, okay, we're on to something here. Like
Ah,
this is magical. Like it's a really like poignant, cool moment, and like they just not didn't stop happening from then on. But yeah, that was sick. It was a good way to start the trip.
whoa. I mean, it's just a thing with the Rangers being out there, and obviously people kill. A lot of people have died in the ivory trade, and Rangers especially protecting these literal mammoths. Just to think how many Rangers have lost their lives to protect Craig
Hundred
is
percent.
just
Yes, that's the right way of
whoa.
looking at it. That really is, and that's why like these guys they go through it. Like when you're watching these David Attenborough documentaries, how many times are you thinking about the guy with the gun who has to go out to shoot the other guys with guns before they can murder that thing and sell it generally to the Far East? Like
Yeah,
you don't bat an eyelid for it. But the reality is, dude, without them, everything is gone. It's all gone. Like there's no more planet Earth too without wildlife rangers. But they just don't get their time in the sun enough, I don't think.
yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, I always love seeing the in the Attenborough documentaries in particular. You always have like the cameraman's journey throughout afterwards, and a lot of the
Mm.
times they will speak to a lot of the locals and have that the kind of B-roll at the end of what they went through and what it is that they do, and that's one of the great things that YouTube and TikTok and all these things have in particular now, which is it's not just exposing. So beforehand, it was I feel like media itself was all about just capturing these things to showcase them to the world, which is
Yeah.
almost it's all again just for that kind of attention and that money, where that showcase is on the animal. It's in the same way that the well, it's just kind of it's great for that thing. But now you see with a lot of solo creators who are going there because they truly, genuinely love the experience and to help out to especially to help the people who are there out to showcase them instead. You see so many of the behind the scenes stories of that of what goes into the life of that one of these elephants and one of the rangers in particular behind it. It's crazy.
Yeah, man.
It's a
Yeah, I mean,
crazy lifestyle.
if you've got like another bonus of youth is if you have youth behind you, like don't go on these like cushy safaris where you pay $7,000, you fly in, you stay in a nice tent, you have a hot bath, you get woken up with a hot chocolate, you go in like that's fine for a stage of life, man. If you've made your money and you want to be comfortable with your wife, going on safari and looking at the animals from your heated seat in a Land Cruiser, that's great if you're older. But like if you're younger, one of our privileges that we have is we have the ability to rough it for a bit. Like go and spend some time with the wildlife rangers, like living in a hut that's full of goat shit and like drinking like the water that they're drinking and boiling and like going through that experience with them. And then the moment where you're walking around with them and you have one of the magical moments, that like the amplification of that moment through like going through the story with the people, like walking a mile in their shoes before actually getting to it, it's just will never compare to flying into a country, being driven to the place where you can photograph it, photographing it, then flying home and showing your friends, being like, oh, I took this photo. It's like, no, man, no. Like once you can, if you can go and live the real shit and like get uncomfortable with the people behind the story, then like that turns that little moment or that photo into just like a properly life changing experience for you, and like like from a selfish standpoint, it will just change everything about that like moment. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Go and
Well,
spend some time in the rain.
well, for me, I feel like it's the same kind of leap. So the difference between the people who want to go on the safaris, the comfy safaris, and the people who go and rough it with the rangers, that is the same difference in leap one way as it is from sitting there and watching a David Attenborough documentary versus going on a safari to go and see it. That kind of monumental difference. So in terms of me sitting here and watching a David Attenborough documentary and seeing these African elephants, I think, wow, that looks incredible. The next step up so far is people who go on the safaris to go and see these elephants and like, oh my God, that's incredible. It's order of magnitude better than seeing it on the television. I believe the same order of magnitude above that experience is the actual going and roughing it with the rangers. It's not just simply you're still seeing it in person, but no, now you've got a very visceral feeling of what goes into it, and you can have such a greater appreciation for that way of life and for that creature itself and the whole landscape.
Agreed, 100% agreed. Like if you go through that experience, like the highs and the lows, for a bit of time, you sacrifice some of your time on this planet to experiencing a fraction of what their lived experience is. Then, like the moment that you do bump into the thing which everyone cares about, everyone loves, like a lion going onto Pride Rock and roaring or whatever, and you seeing it, is imbued with so much meaning that, like, fuck, man, like it makes your life have more meaning, I guess. And like, what could be more meaningful in life than that?
Oh yeah, it's like it's again, it's like if somebody took me up in a helicopter and dropped me on top of Mount Everest. Would that view be as incredible if I had just spent the past 2 to 3 years training to go and do that, and then surviving the trip, and watching seeing literally the dead bodies along the side of the people who hadn't made it along the way. Different experience, levels different, ridiculous.
So so true. Yeah, human beings are such a weird species, man. The fact that you can have
Yeah,
the exact same time and moment on the exact same place, exact same weather conditions, and it just have a completely, like you said, that's such a good analogy of Everest on the top. Yeah, yeah. You can't fake it. You can't fake anything about life because you will always know, and if you always know, then yeah, you can't pull the wool over your own eyes.
no, you can't. You can't. I mean, I feel a lot of it comes down to you've got to have that fear. Like you've got to have that the experience of getting you there. We've all heard a lot of the times that it's the struggle that makes the journey. It's the struggle which you've had to endure and persevere through, which makes it worthwhile in the end because you know exactly what went into it. It's not signed, sealed, and delivered to your door. It's you've had to go and create that experience through fear and dissolution beforehand. So saying that, you've got one of your articles here, which is the scariest moment of your life on an
Ah,
Indonesian
yeah,
volcano.
yeah. Yeah, so okay, so that was when I was like a little less traveled. I was like working in Indonesia, but I hadn't done any of the African stuff at this stage. And Jasper, we go on the adventures with, or I go on the adventures with, like he had managed to get himself a fishing boat to basically he asked them how much they made in a week, him and like these four other friends, and then he found out like it wasn't like a small amount of money. Say it's like $400 in a week from that fishing boat, but he worked out that between the five of us, we could split that between us. We could give the fishermen more money than they would normally make in a week, and just get them to take us to these far off volcanoes where we could go spearfishing on places where there are no people. So that was the game. The game was we have a pirate ship. Let's go spearfishing on some volcanoes. The problem was I was working on this luxury private island while these pirates were all like these like when I say pirates, I mean like my friends who are like little spearfishing pirates at this stage. They had got the ship. They needed me to get to the island, and like I was like, "Where are you?" And they were like, "Well, we're in the we're in the middle of like the Flores Sea." And I was like, "How? What am I meant to do with that information?" And then Jasper like gave me an island to get to on Google Maps. He was like, "If you can get to this shore on this island within the next 3 days, we can pick you up." And I was like, right. I, I flew into Flores, and then I found a ferry at the end of the day. So the sun's setting, and I just had one thing on my mind. I was like, get to that island. So I got to the ferry, got to this other island, which was a smaller island dominated by this huge volcano, just as the sun's setting. So like the sun is pretty much fully down, and I touch base in this little Indonesian island with my rucksack on. This is not a tourist town. There's about, I don't know, 5,000 people living on this island, all fishermen, and then just like a backpacker. And I just got my phone out and was like, look, this northern beach, 13 kilometers north, can anyone take me? No one said they could take me. No one spoke English. I spoke a little bit of Bahasa, but not enough. And eventually, this one bald guy who was drunk, smoking a giant cigarette, was like, "I'll take you halfway." And I was like, "Deal." Got into the back of his car. Like, he drove me around the volcano, and he literally dropped me off on the volcano on the other side of the port. So now I had to walk, like, in a straight line. It was like 8 kilometers. But then the way I was going to have to do it, it was a 13-kilometer walk at night, like in the dark, through a rainforest on a volcano to get to this beach. And
Fuck.
I hadn't thought about that in my head. I was like, yeah, it's a 13K walk on Google Maps. Like, on Google Maps, you see it during the day. You don't see it during nighttime. I hadn't joined the dots that walking at night was going to be a lot different to walking at day. My God, man, it was scary, like real scary. It's like a
Whoa.
fully clear night. The moon is massive, luckily, so I could see stuff, but I could also see everything. Like the rainforest was alive. Like there was owls flying over my head, like screeching. I could see this giant volcano behind me. It was like one of the like most horror movie scenes of my life. And I'm walking through, like getting chased by all these stray dogs. My heart rate the whole time is like 180, 200. I had my like, Fitbit on. I was pranging out. And then like so I just go through the rainforest. I literally am walking for about 3 hours through this rainforest, past dogs. Every 10, 20 minutes, something happens in the jungle which scares the shit out of me. Like a monkey will move, or a bird will just take flight, or a bat will come and pester me. Like I'm never not stressed. And then I came out of the forest, and I actually had signal. And I was like, no way I have signal. I came out of the forest onto this trail, which led to the beach I was going to. And I was like, yes, I survived the forest. And like took my steps onto the roads. I had signal. I was like, yes, I have signal. I called Jasper up. I was like, I'm about to be on that fucking beach, guy. I'm about to be on it. Tell everyone. And then Jasper's like, well done, mate. And then as I'm on the phone to him, I've got him on speakerphone, and I've got my torchlight shining the way, and I just see these two gigantic eyes, like hovering about. It's about. They looked like they were about 2-ish meters off the ground, and I was like, "Oh fuck!" And like silence,
Shit.
two eyes just like reflecting back so hard, and they're huge. And I was just like, there's these giant eyes, man. And there's these giant eyes. And in my head, I was going through like animals it could be. It's like, what could it be in Indonesia? Like, Indonesia has no large mammals, really. I mean, it used to have a tiger, it had a rhino, I guess. Like, but like, what could be that big? And I was just going through jungle animals in my head, and I was like, it can't be good. I was like, I know they have tigers, or they used to have tigers. I was like, is this a fucking tiger? If I like bumped into this like Indonesian tiger,
Whoa.
closer and closer, this thing like I stop moving because I'm shitting myself, and the eyeballs just start coming towards me so slowly down the trail, like so slowly, and I silently as well. I hear nothing, and then right when they get like 10 meters away, I'm still on the phone to Jasper. They like go down to the floor, like something that's about to pounce. Like they literally like the two hovering eyes just go woof, and I can't see any outline or anything. So in my head it's about to pounce, and I just scream like fuck, and I jump off the trail, throw my bag off, and as I've done that, I've scared the crap out of this horse, which has been slowly walking towards me, trying to figure out what I was. And this thing just like lets out this like screeching whinny, like, and just boof, just clop, 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 just goes straight down the path I was just on, runs off. But like in the end, it was just a horse, just a guy bumping into a horse on an island. But like all the things that came together just meant it was just like I've never been that scared before, never.
It's crazy. It's ridiculous. Like it's you think it's scary walking back after a night out at home where it's the lights are out and it's no one about, but like you're there. This is not your home anymore. This is not we're not in Kansas anymore. It's just a completely different world to think. I get it in Australia. It's like on a very minute level. I'm not one to be scared of spiders or of bugs at all. But if I see even a spider even that big whilst I'm on a public toilet and I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like it'll send shivers down me because just because you don't know what it is, and to be like again in a foreign jungle and have the eyes and being like, oh my god,
Well, it's
absolute
not like going.
shivers down your
It's
spine.
just not like going for a walk at home through bushes. Like cobras exist here. you know that, like, and if you can't properly see where you're standing, there is nothing to stop you from standing on a cobra. It's like walking around in long grass in the Philippines. Terrible idea. Like, yeah, and most people aren't going to bat an eyelid about it. Like, oh no, I'll just go wander through that grass to that restaurant. If I've got long grass to go through in the Philippines, I don't ever do it. Like, because there is a chance that you don't know if you're not going to step on a cobra, and if I'm alone and I step on a cobra, then I am dead. Like, there's no like, oh, I wonder what's my game plan going to be. So like, you're right. Like,
What do you mean
it
game
just
plan? It's just
becomes,
game over.
yeah,
Like, there's
yeah,
no
it's
game
game
plan
over.
if that happens. Yeah, this is
Yeah,
a full-time whistle right there. Like, there's no more.
and
There's no extra time. There's no
total
half.
death.
Like, this is it.
It's one of
Yeah,
the worst deaths
it's.
ever. Like, your neurotoxins, your body breaking down from the inside, and you can feel everything. Like, snake bites are no joke. So when you have those little things like
Uh,
tick, I guess that's one of the differences to the UK. Like in the UK, people are a problem, I guess, but like the wild isn't really a problem. But when you're like pottering around in a country you don't know, which you know has like things that can kill you, then it adds like a different bit to the fear aspect, I guess.
so here's the thing that scares me the most about travel, literally out in the sticks. So I'm talking not just obviously Australia. I don't count it as out in the sticks. It's fun. It's great. Loads of experiences, but it's not really scary. It's not. There's nothing to it. It's just like the UK in the sun. It's just the scary part is how you're going to get your next meal if you haven't got the money and blah 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 blah.
Right.
But the thing that really scares me about being in the parts of the world like you are at the moment is the same thing that probably scares lots of women walking home from a night out. It's the fact that you are vulnerable because of who you are. It's not that you're a person. It's the fact that as a white person and the perception of white people in these areas who've come over because they've got the money and the leisure time to be able to do so, the fear for me is being taken advantage of in those areas and to be robbed, to be stolen from, to be literally be out there and rob blind and you've got nothing and no one, nothing you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you asking whether I have that fear as well?
Oh, the floor is open. Like, what can you say on those terms? I mean, obviously, it's a
Um,
fear. It's got to be in the back of your mind, especially in bigger cities. Obviously, keeping your passport close and all these everything else like that. But it's a fear for me is like, is someone who's going to rob me at gunpoint or at knife point because I'm white and just going to take all my money, and then I've got no choice other than to be stabbed and then
mm,
go home.
yeah. No, you know what? I actually haven't given it that much thought. I really regarding. I've just even like the sketchiest moments of the whole trip. There was the humanity in people. I've always been treated. I've not. I don't think I've met these demons. I know these demons exist out there, and they will do anything for to rob you, and they don't care about your human life or whatever. Maybe I've just like so far been lucky, I guess, that I've not had that moment where I don't think I've met anyone or been in trouble with anyone who I thought was maliciously trying to like either kill me or take my stuff, you know. But that would be a hellish, a hellish moment, especially for me, um, who's traveling around with like, dude, I'm traveling around with too much expensive equipment right now. Like, I mean, if you tot everything up, including the electric bike, bear in mind, I have no lock. I don't have a lock for my bike. Don't have a lock for anything. It's like I have nothing. So like, I have, at the minute, my stuff isn't even a locker at the place I'm staying. But like, um, it's a lot. And I do think about it. Like, if someone was to just take this one bag, what would I lose? And it's like, if I tot it all up, it's like $10,000 worth of film equipment and like a camera, laptop, that sort of stuff. But like,
Well, for the most part, you'd probably have to go home. Like, someone takes your
yeah,
takes your passport. Someone takes your passport, takes your wallet, takes your phone. What are you gonna do? Like,
yeah, yeah. No, it would be game over super fast. You've actually made me think. I probably need to like
shit.
pay
I'm
more
sorry,
attention.
man. I didn't mean to scare you. Because I only mention it and bring it up because that was my fear. Where I told you earlier about my friend's story of trying to cross the border. Where so he left his passport under the seat and that was stolen, so that he had to cross over the border. Well, he didn't have to. I suppose that was his mistake. But because of that, he was stuck in prison for in a really rampacked cold, miserable Vietnamese prison with the most dodgiest, scariest looking people there, and you're the only white person there. You're sleeping on the floor there. You're all passing a bucket around to shit. You're getting one boiled egg every other day to eat, and you had one phone call which you didn't even manage to make it through because you didn't know the number. You didn't know the number of the embassy, so he literally left his details as to any whoever was on the phone. Hopefully, they managed to get them, record it, and write it down. And he was just waiting and waiting and waiting. And he was there for 2 weeks with no idea what was going to happen and how long he was going to be in this prison, this rampant little prison holding cell for. Because he had no details, had nothing. He was effectively, he was no man. Like, he had nothing there. That's what scares me. More than people. Sorry, more than the environments and the animals. Like, that stuff, yeah, it's a worry.
Getting the wrong side of the law and, like, by mistake, being wrong place, wrong time, that is fucking scary. Yeah.
Yeah, you go into a bar and like you don't realize that you've just walked into a heavily locals bar where the mafia are there, and then they just think, all right, they're gonna send some little guy out who has to prove himself. Right, prove yourself. Go and stab this white guy and rob him, and then you're allowed in the gang. Wrong place, wrong time, you're dead.
Yeah.
There's no wrong place, wrong time with. There's no wrong place, wrong time with cobras. You know those cobras are going to be in those reeds. You can avoid that. That's what scares the shit out of me. And I completely understand that there's, for the vast majority, I'm saying this like it's a fucking gonna happen. Obviously, it's not. Like 99% of people is 99% of people. If you treat them with the honesty and trust and kindness that you want from them, they're going to give it to you in return, and they'll be grateful for you and what you can do and whatever you can do to help. But that's 99%. The other 1%'s the concerning part, and it's you can say that those people are everywhere. Is that yes, they are, but at least you speak the language when you're in Peckham. At least you speak the language,
and you understand.
At least you know where not to go,
what not to do. Yeah. And you've heard stories about what not to do. Blah blah blah. Yeah. I do. I get what you mean. And as someone who just travels around in complete ignorance the whole time, that's a risk I'm running. It really is. But that's I can't organize anything. So if I want to travel, I have to do it off the seat of my pants. I can't organize shit. It doesn't work in my brain. So I just have to just keep on plodding along and just make decisions that seem to lead to better outcomes, and then keep on learning from those decisions, learning from my interactions, and then just playing the game, I guess. Like that, back to that player one mentality of when I act like this is how I'm treated. Do I want to have this environment to exist in? Do I like how this interaction played out? And the whole time just subconsciously altering how you're going about the game to get outcomes that bring desired outcomes, or actions that bring desired outcomes. I guess that's another thing I really like about travel, is that constant learning about how to act, how to perform in a new country for a bit to get what you want. But like you said, there are some things you just can't account for, man. And that it is scary, but I just don't think you can live thinking about. I mean,
no, of course, I am over exaggerating. It is a fear, but it's one of those fears well, for myself, I'm very willing to take, but that's my main fear. It's almost like not stepping outside your house in fear of being struck by lightning. Yeah, it happens. It likely no. Are you going to miss out on all the good things that are outside in the world because of this potentiality that this could happen? No. If I wanted things to be comfortable and safe and have very low possible probability of me getting, just of a shortened life, then I probably would have got a very nice secure job in the UK somewhere in an office and done sales. Well, I didn't. So
eat your exact nutrients. Yeah, calculate all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But you don't because it's again that unknown it's exciting, and it's exciting for people like us who, let's be honest, for all intents, for meaning no ill will whatsoever, we're the ones with a screw loose. We're the ones with a screw loose who find this stuff incredible. You show it to some people. If somebody showed me, me reading your articles versus me giving my brother, for example, your articles to read, he'd read it and think, okay, yeah, of course, there's of course there's ranges in Africa and there's big elephants. And what? I don't get it. And I'll read it and I'm like, or I'll be showing him just like because I got it on my iPad. I'll be like, "What do you mean? What do you mean? So what? This like it's what gets your heart racing. It's what gets you makes you feel alive. And these stories for me make me feel alive. So just to go over a few different ones, you said the man that blew your mind with bamboo.
Yeah, Kuyo Romeo. He was an indigenous guy. That was like 2 months ago. I wanted to film like more aspects of Musungi than just the rainforest. I wanted to go into the ranges again. Kuya Romeo is a ranger who works for Musungi, and he grew up in the rainforest his whole life, along with his grandparents, who taught him everything they knew from their grandparents. So essentially, he's a font of indigenous knowledge about the rainforest, um, and it's just fascinating to spend time with. Like the way that he cures ailments using just stuff which is around him. Fascinating. Like he even had things which you could wrap around your arm and like make your arm hot, like a hot compress. He had leaves which would create like real heat, like 68, 70 degrees, like on your skin from these leaves, just from
What?
like a reaction of him breaking them, spitting on them, sticking them on your arm, and then he would like make a hot compress. Crazy, like exothermic reaction. But anyway,
What? What? What?
no,
Do you know what
crazy.
he used? Or
I know that the indigenous name of it from the video, but he doesn't speak English, so no, I don't. But I'll have a video of it. I can send it over, and so yeah, I'll find out.
please
But
do.
he one time like he realized my game was to learn more about the rainforest, and at that point he was like, I'm gonna show this English guy some things. So he would like come on and he would just like grab me at certain points and take me off. And one time he grabbed me and took me off and he was just like, bamboo. It's like, food, just bamboo. So okay. And he went like and he basically he caught a load of river crabs, which he sorry, someone's walking past. He like mushed up in a bamboo casing. So he like chopped some bamboo. He had like the bamboo like sections. So he took those sections. He took some river crabs, mushed them up in one bamboo section. Then he got a drier bit of bamboo, and I didn't know you could do this. You can rub bamboo together and make fire. Like he literally just chopped a little notch in this dry bit of bamboo, took a really thin bit of bamboo, rubbed the bamboo against the bamboo, and fire just like quickly as
Just like
well. Like
across itself.
across itself, yeah. So you make like a little notch into a bigger bit of dry
Hmm.
bamboo, and then you take like a slice, like a knife of dry bamboo, and you just rub that across itself, and it will make fire if you go hard enough, long enough. So he like within 30 seconds he'd made a fire from bamboo, and he had this fire like crackling next to him. So already my mind was like, fuck off. Like 30 seconds. Like there was like smoke in like 5 seconds. It was almost more efficient than using a lighter. I couldn't believe that. So he made the fire, got the fire going. While he's got the fire going, he's got these other bits of bamboo over here that he's put his river crabs in and his chilies. He's mashed all that up, and then he gets rice, sticks the rice in the other bit of bamboo. So he puts rice in a banana leaf, and then stuffs that. And the bits of bamboo that he cooks in are green, so they don't burn. Then he took all of the food that he'd made just in bamboo and just threw them all on the fire. These bits of green bamboo, after stuffing it all in and putting like a stopper in it. And then the whole meal was cooked in like 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. Took everything out, emptied all the bamboo out onto this big banana leaf, and then we just ate this amazing meal of like chili river crab rice that he just made completely with bamboo, like from beginning to end. And I don't know, man, it was like a real mind blowing moment for me that you could do any of those things. It was genius.
Just in 15 minutes. Yeah, it's like if you take somebody who's as green as us, or as I say, as green as me, and chuck me in the middle of a jungle, and you say, okay, there's just basic things for survival, basic things you need to do. Is like, okay, go and make camp. I'm like, okay, start fire. Where'd you start? Like, because every rainforest, everything you do is
Really?
different.
Is this a long
It's not just like you go into the one rainforest and it's all the same. Like you've got different types of trees, different types of bamboo, different types of animal wildlife around you as well, all completely different. And like how they use things for construction, for some of them for tools, all these other things. It's like, this is ridiculous. Like, I couldn't do any of these things. And
Mm.
these guys have had this passed down knowledge, and it's so in depth, that knowledge, because it's so specific to their own immediate area, that it's like, it's incredible. One of
Yeah.
my great stories I heard beforehand was this guy who was in he's been living in Africa, like living in the Amazon rainforest. Yeah, no. Where was he living? So no, he was in he was in the Amazon rainforest, and he was just like way out there in the deep, just like well, literally with locals who've never really left the rainforest whatsoever, and he was stopping all these people from coming in, obviously, in deforestation and taking the wood. So they would literally come in and they'd stop all the what do you call them? Like the trees? What are they called?
Loggers.
I don't know. Loggers, that's the one. I was gonna say it's just definitely something to do with trees, loggers. Yeah, the loggers from coming in, and he'd been living there for a while, and he's now telling the stories of what he'd do and how they caught fish was incredible. Because what they would do was they would take, because they're always barefoot everywhere. They have to be barefoot because they need to feel what's around them, so they can be quiet as well when they've got predators all around them. And they would take one of the thick calluses off the bottom of their heel or on the front pad of their foot. He'd take that bit off. He'd put that on the end of a fishing rod. He would use that to catch a small fish, kill the small fish, use that to catch a bigger fish. And they'd either eat that bigger fish, or they would then take that fish, leave it out as bait to catch a larger mammal in the
Wow.
rainforest. And it's like, what?
That's crazy, dude.
What? Using yourself as bait and going up the food chain more and more to get there. It's like these little, and that's something they do each day. And like, so they have these people like the bigger the calluses you can grow on your foot in the shortest period of time, then the more likely you are to be able to catch something to eat for yourself that evening. It's like, that is ridiculous.
That
It's
is wild.
crazy.
Yeah, and I love that, dude. I love that, like that's part of humans' ingenuity. I love that. I really do, and I think like the more that you lose that, like in like a Western sense, where like we're not as connected with the natural world as these guys are, and like yeah, we've obviously we came from that. Like our ancestors will have known how to work the land in certain ways and like to work with nature in that way and how to act in other ways. But like when we hear about those stories, our jaws hit the floor so fast just because it's like no way. Like humans can do that. Humans can actually do
Yeah.
that. Like
And if you
crazy.
ask one of them guys out there, they would turn around to us and they'd be like, "What do you mean humans can do that? How did you catch your food?" It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
well, I jump inside a metal box, which then rolls to a big hut, and this big hut has all the food there in plastic. And I bring it home, and then I use the magic heating box to put it in. And I click it, I push it, and then it comes out hot and ready to eat. And
Yeah,
they're like,
yeah.
"What?" They'd be like, what is that? What the fuck? And I'm like, yeah, it's such a different world, and it's
The
ridiculous
thing
how
is,
like out of.
one of the there's genius in both things. There really is. But like
Oh yeah,
like but then I guess being the disconnect from nature that we get from the that genius side of convenience, um yeah, I guess you start caring less about nature. I guess that's a symptom of that. Once you get
well,
that
we live in a hyper specified world. Sorry, a hyper specialized world. Like the reason that we have all these economic advantages now that we never had is because each individual is able to be so specialized at one thing that they can focus. You could focus all of your energy on video creation, content creation, or storytelling, and you can specialize in that. You go back 100 years ago, let alone 1,000, 2,000 years ago, you can't specialize in that. You've got to be able to do that and be able to cook, be able to hunt, be able to sterilize a wound, be able to do all these different things, which you'd never have to think about now because somebody else does it for us. So there's the pros and the cons for it. However, there's just unparalleled now to think that there's still people there living in completely rural areas where their lifestyle is so self-sufficient that it boggles the Western mind as to how much they actually know.
Mm, yeah.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I fucking hate. The one thing I hate about that, you're saying about how he knows that guy. I can't remember who he said his name was as well. Incredible that you remember all of these such like these places and foreign names. Your memory for the and recollection of these things is crazy. Um, but then the one thing that really kind of gets on my nerves about these things is like you mentioned that he was very good with the heat packs or like the
Oh yeah.
literal rainforest medicines, or he didn't know the science behind it, or maybe he didn't, but he just knew that if you took this leaf and these compounds, rubbed them together and whatever, it would do this thing. And then all of the medicines that these places had, which would cure all different types of illnesses and diseases and viruses and infections, that these literal concocted from the jungle would work to cure those things, is
Yeah.
incredible. But what
Yeah.
really fucking pisses me off is the Western world will see that and think straight away that we're just going to start selling you this compound and this vitamin and this supplement and you're going to live forever because it's natural and it's what we used to do. It's like, no, not the same.
Mm, yeah. It's crazy how much as well that we still haven't quite tapped yet. Um, it's like I hope before we like, you know, how much rainforest we're losing and stuff as a resource of like natural wealth. Like you just got to hope that we're not just turning something that which could be a cure for cancer, like an ultimate cure for cancer, into someone's desk. That would be a real loss. And then maybe it takes us 1,000 years to figure out the compound properly that was already in this bloody flower or this in this toad's asshole in the Amazon. Like, uh, it's crazy to be so blindly hacking away at things, which you know contain treasures already. Like 25% or something of modern medicine already comes from the rainforest. So, like, if you know that 25% of modern medicine off the shelf is coming from the rainforest, how can you be blindly just like it's
Yep.
crazy? But yeah, there you go.
Profit, 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 profit. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
we're
Okay.
a strange old species.
Yeah. Next one. How did you drown 13,000 kilometers away from home?
Aha. This is a pretty. This is like I think this is like the big story. Like this is like my favorite one. But like, Jasper again. We when I was working, I was just about to get the job on the island to celebrate. Jasper was like, right before you go into the world of work again, he was like, let's go and have like a week adventure or 2 week adventure. And he found Timor Leste on the map and was like, I haven't been to Timor Leste yet. Let's go to Timor Leste. Timor Leste, Timor means east in Bahasa, and Leste means east in Portuguese. So it's just really far east, like above Australia, super far east in Indonesia. Um, but it's its own country, and it's got this crazy past of colonization, and then fighting with Indonesia, and then eventually it became its own country like 26 years ago. Like it's very young, but because of all the war that it's been through, it's so much less developed than Indonesia, and it's only just now beginning to find its feet. Like it's basically a newborn country. So traveling there was like it was an interesting experience. Um, so we went to Timor Leste. The whole goal was to go and see what the reef was like, because the theory behind it was not many people have been fishing on that reef because the country's had so much turmoil in its past. So it'll be the first time that we go to a reef which people really haven't been concentrating on that much because the fighting that was going on inland. So the theory was we'd find some big fish. So we flew in there with Jasper's
Got
spear
you.
gun. We found 2 girls at the hostel who were interested in an adventure, and we were like, "Look, if we split the cost of this car between the 4 of us, we can hire a car and we can go up the entire Timorese coast together with our own car." The girls were like, "We're on board." So we hired a car, threw all the spearfishing gear in the back, threw the camping gear in the back, and then we just went up the coastline of Timor Leste. And the one thing we'd said to the girls is like, "We promise we're good spearfishermen. Like we will be able to like find food on the
You're
way."
not going to starve.
Yeah, that was like a big part of the deal. So the first morning comes along, and Jasper's like looking at me like, "Right, but we better get in the sea then, man. We need breakfast." And it was like, oh, okay, it was like quite all this. It was quite real. So I'd never felt pressure like that to catch a fish, which was a problem. So like we
I
hopped in
mean,
the
the
sea.
pressure whilst you're trying to hold your breath, I imagine.
Yeah, you don't want that. You don't want to try harder to catch a fish than you need to if when you're spearfishing. Um, so we got in the sea, paddled out along this like really shallow rocky bit, and then this rock just drops like 25 meters. Like it was enough to give me vertigo in the sea. It was so clear, and the drop was so clear
Whoa.
that I was like, fuck. Like I felt like I was going to fall into it. I almost forgot I was floating. And it was just this wall of like coral going down 25 meters deep, just color, life, just incredible. I'd never seen anything like it. Just a cliff of the best coral you could ever hope for. And at the bottom, you
Beautiful.
just big shapes circling down below. We were like, okay, there's bloody coral groupers at the bottom of this thing, which are like the best fish to eat. If you can get yourself like a blue spotted coral trout, they call it in Australia, then you're eating well. So Jasper went down first. He's a very experienced spear fisherman. He easily can go down to like 20, 25. He took his time, took a shot, came back up to the surface, and he brought one fish with him. And then he passed the gun over and he was like, right, there's another one down there. You go and get that one, then boom, breakfast done. We can eat and get out of here. So he gave me the gun. I loaded it up. And while I was doing this, I was hyperventilating because I was excited. So I was like, and if you hyperventilate when you're freediving, I didn't know this, but it's the biggest cause of shallow water blackout. So it's the fastest way to kill yourself
Oh,
freediving is to hyperventilate.
fuck.
You're tricking your body into thinking it has more oxygen than it has. But in reality, all you're doing is lowering your CO2. So when you hyperventilate, your blood CO2 level drops. And when that drops too low, they never pass. So your CO2 level gaining in your blood and your oxygen level dropping, there should be a point where they sort of pass each other. And then that's when your body goes, oh, you really need to breathe. But if you hyperventilate, your CO2 level goes so far down that they never pass. And your brain can just switch off without even telling you you need to breathe, which is what happened. So like I went down to like 25 meters. I had no idea, not 20 meters. And I had no idea that I was just like I had no idea that I'd put myself into this state where I could black out. And I was down for like a 1 minute and 30 seconds, just looking at this bloody fish, sticking its head in and out of this cave, like playing peekaboo with me. And then in like 2 minutes went past and I still didn't have a shot. And eventually it came a little bit too far out of this hole and I shot it straight through the gills. And I looked up to Jasper, gave a little fist pump. I felt great. And then I started swimming up with the fish still in the cave. So Jasper sees that the spear's in the cave and he swims down past me to go and get the fish. And as we pass, my brain just switches off, man. 10 meters below the surface. And I just like have beautiful, colorful coral wall. And then my vision just goes to like a tiny little dot where all I can see is the surface of the ocean. And then boom, the dot goes. And I blacked out 10 meters underneath the sea with my snorkel in my mouth still. Another big no-no. Because if you have your snorkel in your mouth when you black out spearfishing, the water has a direct access to your lungs. So it goes in immediately. There's nothing stopping it. So as soon as I
No,
blacked out,
oh, fuck.
the seawater starts going into my lungs and I start tripping balls. Like I I can't describe
What?
exactly what, but it was
What?
like it was like zipping through different colorful spaces, times, lights. Like it was it was a wild time of unconsciousness. So I was going through like a strange like trip, like tripping balls, and then Jasper like looks up at my body, and I'm sinking because I have dive weights, and I've got these two jets of foam coming out of my nose, and because from when seawater hits your lungs, it turns into pulmonary foam. So he swam, grabbed me around the waist, kicked me to the surface. He broke my head through the surface, and he thought I would come back to life when the air hit my face. My lungs were full of water. So we're 100 meters out to shore. I've just drowned, and Jasper can't get me back in time to do CPR. I haven't taken a breath in about 4 minutes. And Jasper knows that when it gets to 5 minutes, 6 minutes, that's when parts of your brain start dying. So, like, the
Shutting off.
person, if he can bring me back, the person who he brings back might not even be Josh anymore. Might even be worth, like, fucking returning me to life. So he knows he's got 1 minute to act. So he, like, puts me on my back against his chest and starts doing, like, chest compressions, but, like, the Heimlich maneuver. Because he heard
Hmm.
somewhere that mouth to mouth isn't recommended in CPR anymore. So he starts doing this, and he's getting nothing for about 30 seconds. And then he says that my whole body went rigid and then flopped in his arms. And he was like, oh, he's just died. And apparently in that moment, he was thinking about how to repatriate my body from Timor-Leste to my parents in the UK. That was the first thought when I went rigid, then flopped. So he said, as a last gasp, before he would like drag my body into the shore, he flipped me over and started putting his mouth on my mouth and started blowing hard into my mouth. And every time he blew into my mouth, a bit of pulmonary foam would come out of my lungs and go into his mouth, and he would swallow it so he didn't break the seal, because he's kicking in the middle of the ocean to keep us both afloat. So he's kicking, blowing, swallowing the foam out of my mouth, and then eventually, after he did this for 30 seconds, I did like a into his mouth, and he knew that I'd coughed, so it was time to bring me back to shore. So he fucking kicked me back to shore, dragged my body like onto the rocks, and as he's dragging me onto the rocks, I come back from the weird trip, and I can't remember exactly where I'd been, but I looked at him in like one moment. We talk about it all the time, and apparently I said, you will not believe where I've just been or what I've just seen. And then I went back to being a dead guy. But for like one split second, I had full clarity and like looked straight at him, and said that. And then went back to being drowned. And then Jasper, he knows he's got to get me to a hospital so that they can like see what's going on in my lungs. So he gets the girls, they pack up camp, they throw my like body into the front seat, and then I'm trying to pass out the whole time because my lungs were impaired in soaking up
Yeah.
oxygen. So like that secondary drowning is the next way you die. If you don't drown, you can die from secondary drowning, and that's what gets
Oh
most people
shit.
because their lungs are impaired. So then Jasper like drove me to hospital. Get into hospital after 2 hours in Baucau, in one of the poorest countries in the world. They roll me into a hospital which isn't even in the capital city. So like it was rough. And then the doctors are like, "What's happened?" It's like, "We need to transport you to the capital city, to Dili, because they have a ventilator. So if your lungs give out, they can keep you going there. So we need to fly you from here to Dili, but we're going to have to give you a catheter if we're going to fly you." And I was like, "Why?" I was like, "I'll just take a pee now." And they were like, "No, no, no. We need to give you a catheter in case you go unconscious and piss yourself on the plane." And I was like, "Oh no." So this like
Oh.
it was terrible. This nurse comes in
Yeah.
with a giant orange tube, this male nurse, and he doesn't do anything.
Oh.
He's like, pull your shorts down. So I like pull my shorts down, and my dick, dude, I've never seen him look worse. Like he was
Poor guy.
tiny, and he looked sad. Like if a penis could have emotions, he was sad. Like drowned, devoid of blood, cold, wet. Like he was the worst he's ever looked. And then so this nurse, you're meant to use lubricant. If you go to a normal hospital, they will
Ah.
lubricate the tube, and they will also
Mm.
use a special inserter to help the process of getting it to the bladder. No, are we disconnected again,
Oh my
or are we still?
god.
We are still in the room. Thank God. Okay,
Oh my
are you still
god.
with me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, okay. And anyway, this guy uses zero lubricant and stuffs this pipe down my penis. And that was the worst part of the whole experience by a country mile. And it's not even close. And then he eventually gets to the bladder after I'm screaming and crying for like 30 seconds,
Mm.
man. Like getting it into that little fella was a mission, and it was not good. And eventually he gets to the bladder, and then the bag of urine next to my bed fills up. But I almost passed out from the pain. And then
Oh my
um,
god.
key bags in. They take me to this plane. The plane flies me from Baucau to Dili. I land in Dili, and the ambulance crew refuses to pick me up unless I can prove to them that I will pay them $80 on arrival. And I was like, I haven't got any money. I am a half naked boy with a tube in his penis, like no wallet. And so we had to have a battle with the ambulance team for them to even leave the hospital to get me. My oxygen by this stage has run out completely, so I'm passing out again in the plane. Eventually, Jasper makes some calls, promises them some money, and they pick me up, take me to the main hospital, and then when I like bump into the main hospital, it's like 100 people in this waiting room,
and all from Timor Leste, all like crying, all like there's a lot of pain and suffering going on in that room, and they just rolled me in, like half naked, just pants on with the tube and my pee bag, and then this doctor comes up to me and he's like, "What are you here for?" I was like, "I drowned," and then he was like, "Why do you have a catheter in?" And I was like, "Because the last doctor said I needed that to travel," and he was like, "No, not really. You could have just peed before." And I was like, "That's what I said." Um, and then I said, "Could you please take this out?" Like pointing at the tube. And he was like, "Yeah, of course, of course." So they wheeled round a curtain. I'm still in the middle of this 100-person waiting room, but they wheeled a curtain around my bed, and these 5 tiny little Timorese nurse girls came walking in, and I'm completely naked at this stage, and they're all laughing, and I'm just there like holding my big bag of pills, like honestly thinking like this is as bad as it gets. And then one of them came in with a bucket. And I was like, "What's the bucket for?" And the doctor was like, "Don't worry about the bucket." And then I've got one of them's like holding my hands. I've got one like mopping my brow. I've got like another one holding the bucket, and then another one like goes and like basically grabs my todger. And then the doctor comes and like grabs the tube with both of his hands and just rips it out like
Ah!
Excalibur stone. And they needed the bucket because of the amount of blood. Like it was disgusting, and it felt like it had been like covered in acid or something. So I was just like dripping. It felt like I was dripping acid out of my dick into this bucket, but it was blood. And I let out the biggest scream of the word "cunt" in my life. And then they peel back the curtain, and I'm just in the middle of this room holding my bucket, now completely naked, with this like 100 people just completely silent, all looking at me, just like this bizarre scene. Yeah, it's fucking wild. And then
All of
after
them
that,
there, all of them there, just like, thank God it's you, not me.
like, what has this white boy done to himself? Like, how has he managed to get himself in this situation? I don't know. Like, I don't know what was going through their brains, but those 5 Timorese nurses, if that's the first time they ever saw a white guy fully naked, then they would not have been impressed. They
They're
would
not
not
in
have
a
been
rush for
impressed at
another.
all. No, I did a terrible representation. So sorry, guys. um,
You let the team
and
down,
then
Josh. You let the team down.
I did. I really did. That was not my finest hour. And then after that, they they gave me like a 5 days in hospital where they kept me on oxygen and gave me anti-pneumonia drugs. And to be fair to them, they did a great job. Kept me going, kept the pneumonia at bay. They did everything right. I was constantly on the phone to my mum, who's a physiotherapist, being like, "This is the drugs they're giving me," and she was like okaying it over the phone. And then after 5 days, Jasper like returns because while I died, he went off on his own mission with these 2 girls around Timor Leste. And he's like, "Well, we've already got the car," so he just went around like
He's
kept
like, yeah, he'll be
spearfishing.
fine. If he's not fine, there's not much we can do about it. But we've got the car.
Exactly, that was his mindset. And then he goes around and he finds on his travels this like holy grail of spearfishing called Jacko Island. So when he comes back, the first thing he says is, "Josh, you have to come with me to this island. It's Elysium for spearfishing." He's like, "Can you go spearfishing?" And I was like, "Jasper, I have just drowned." He was like, "How deep can you go?" I was like, "Maybe 5, 10 meters." He was like, "That'll be enough. That'll be enough." And he drives me. This is why he's my best mate. He drives me all the way across Timor Leste to do what he did. Back to the island. He gives me the spear gun. I try all day to get down deep enough to catch these fish because it was heaven on earth for spearfishing. I just couldn't get down deep enough. And then he convinces me to have one more dive in the evening at sunset on the last day we're in Timor Leste. And I like go down to 10 meters again, just at the very limit of what I can hold my breath to because my lungs were fucked. And then I look up and I just see this fish just comes out of the depths. This giant dogtooth tuna, which is like the most coveted fish in the world for spearfishing. And I like leveled the spear with it. I just pulled the trigger straight through, landed the fish with Jasper, and then I had this photo of me holding like 5 days after I drowned. Well, no, not 5 days. Like 10 days after I drowned, I have a photo of me holding a dogtooth tuna after going back in and getting it, which I'm super like proud of. Like going back in, I guess, like getting back on the horse. Yeah, so that was that story.
What a crazy fucking story. Crazy. Was it worth it?
Yeah, yeah, all completely worth it. And it taught me
But
many, many, many things. Like it taught me
that
about like
is,
you know that saying like
sorry.
what's it like? As a young man, you always feel invulnerable. You feel like nothing can hurt you. No, you can't die almost. And then
Mm,
apparently it's a Confucius quote who's like that you have two lives, and the second one begins when you realize you only have one. And that was like the definitive moment of like, oh, no way, I'm not going to be
yeah.
here one day. I can trace it back to that exact moment.
No, I've heard that before. It's perfect. I mean, it's added a whole new dimension of fear to drowning for me. Not just the fear of drowning, but also the fear of what happens if you don't actually die whilst drowning.
Mm.
I
A
mean, I've
whole
had
concoction of terror.
keep the catheter away, miss.
Mm. The cat was the worst thing about the whole thing. The whole
Oh my
film.
god,
Those things are
I don't know.
horrible.
I'm recoiling. I'm recoiling. I mean, the quote. Sorry to take it away. The quote I've heard beforehand. I've had my own moments like that with. So I didn't drown, but I was hit by a car, and that
Oh shit.
again that Confucius thing of you second life begins when you realize you've only got one, and it's like whoa fuck, and that kind of kickstarts that whole what am I doing here? What do I want to be doing with my time? And it's it in the weirdest way possible, and I'm sure you'd agree to some extent that the worst thing that has happened to you in your life could very often can very often be the best.
Mm. I would agree. Yeah. You need
Mm.
to hit rock bottom for the bounce. Yeah.
Yeah, well, say when you hit rock bottom, the only way is up.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
true. And
I love it.
they are always defining moments as well. Like you can, and they will change the way that you act. Like the way that you acted post car crash, your life would have been, your perspective and your actions would have been completely different had the car crash not happened. And maybe it did
Oh,
open up
it's
some,
ridiculous.
avenues.
I have a scarred memory in my head of so it wasn't a car crash. I got hit by a car. I got
Mm.
just a memory of me flipping over the bonnet of the car, and the world just went upside down. And then I was just, do you know those scenes in a movie where like the camera's on its side, looking along the road and the tarmac, and it's like, oh
Yeah.
fuck, what's just happened? Like that was it for me. It was like
That was your
everything's
worldview. Yeah.
upside down, and now I'm staring along the road, and it's like, what the fuck?
Mm. Yeah.
I am not. I mean, let's be honest. Going to that Confucius quote, it's almost like we feel like we're a bit of a god. Like we feel like we've never had any experience. Or most of us have never had any experience where we have almost died. So there is no actual representation of what life is. There's no, you don't get that appreciation that it could all be over because, as far as your experience has led you to believe, you are immortal. Like that's
Mm.
yes, you hear about people and you see amount of family members or friends, and you hear all these things, and it's sad. But until something closely has happened to you where you've had a near miss, you don't actually feel like it could be you. Like there's no space
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
head for
That's
it.
true.
But when it does happen, it's like, oh fuck, it's time to wake up, time to do
Yeah.
all the things you want to do, and it's seeing those silver linings from that.
Yeah. Like you only know your lived experience as a human, and just by its nature, that means you can't know death. So like
Yeah, it's a
you are
lived experience, not yeah.
yeah, yeah. So you just have no understanding or concept of it, and you do feel like I probably will be fine. Like I'd probably be that one guy who just got lucky with a little genetic defect and will just live forever. Like probably it's probably going to be me. Like, but
Yeah.
no.
I mean, from my experience, it's more likely to be me than anybody else. So,
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely the main character of my story.
yeah, and he's got infinite
Yeah.
lives. No, it's a crazy one. I'm glad we managed to get to that one as well because we've been chatting for a while now, and I'd love to hear all the rest of your stories. I want to hear more about. I want to hear about the elephant who thinks she's a buffalo. I want to hear
Golden
about.
Zoe.
I want to hear about the being mauled by an anti-poaching dog.
Yeah.
The $25,000
Jingle.
raised for an elephant charity as well.
Yeah.
It's
They're
you've lived a
fun
life.
times.
The second life of yours is it's incredible so far, and I've 100 million% would love to have you on again at some point to speak more about it. But we've been
Cheers,
going on for a
baby.
while, and I've
We
just been
have.
sat here for the most part with my jaw at the floor, like, oh, what the fuck? It's like, oh, what the fuck? And like at the edge of my seat, it's like, and then what? And then what? It's just, and you're not disappointed. You've living life, living incredibly, as as the title of the podcast, and that's exactly what I'm here to do, to speak to people like yourself and just hear what amazing things people get up to and can get up to when they decide to. So that, Josh, I have one less thing to say to you, which is thank you.
Cheers, Bailey. Thank you very much, man. Yeah. That's big compliments you paid me at the end there. Thank you. Yeah, it's been super interesting chatting to you. Yeah. And it's been nice to have a conversation like this when I'm in, like, lots of my conversations are very passing, fleeting little things. So you don't really get time to work through any of your thoughts about stuff. So yeah, it's been actually really helpful for me as well. So yeah, cheers.
No problem. Anytime, Josh. Anytime, honestly. And where can people find you?
Uh, if you type in Josh Porter on TikTok, I'll probably be there. Josh Porter on Medium, and then Josh_Porters on Instagram. Yeah.
Perfect. I mean, I came across Josh speaking to the audience now, I came across Josh on Medium before his TikTok videos, and his TikToks are incredible. Just like, he's got an amazing sense of storytelling, but it doesn't come through as much as when you're reading his articles and reading about his life experiences, because you've got a way of putting it across which just stands out to me. And if anyone's like me who loves these travel stories and loves hearing the highs, the lows, and where the hairs on your arms stand up because you're just in that much of, you're enthralled by what Josh is doing, check him out on Medium, have a read. I cannot recommend it enough.
Damn. Thank you, dude. Thank you very much.
Awesome. No, not a problem. Josh, for all the technical difficulties and lack of internet you may have in the Philippines and the whole island dropping to 3G, we got there in the end, but thank you so much.